They recognize their anxiety as their nervous system trying to protect them from perceived social threat, which isn't actually dangerous. They practice breathing techniques before they go. They enter the room slowly, giving themselves time to adjust. They feel the discomfort without needing to escape it. And over time, through repeated exposure with regulation, these situations become genuinely easier. Person B's life expands. Person A's contracts. The difference isn't that Person B doesn't feel fear. It's that they've learned to move with fear rather than being stopped by it. This is the first fundamental truth about calm. It's built through engagement, not withdrawal. You don't become calm by avoiding what scares you. You become calm by teaching your nervous system, through repeated experience, that you can handle difficult things while remaining regulated. The biology of stress, what's actually happening in your body to understand calm, you need to understand its opposite, the stress response. And to understand the stress response, we need to take a brief journey into your nervous system. Your autonomic nervous system has two main branches: the sympathetic nervous system, your accelerator, and the parasympathetic nervous system, your brake. These systems work together to help you respond to your environment. When your brain perceives threat, whether it's a predator in the wilderness or a room full of strangers at a party, your sympathetic nervous system activates. This is the famous fight or flight response. Though modern neuroscience recognizes there are actually more options. Fight, flight, freeze, fawn, and several others. Here's what happens physiologically when this system kicks in. Your heart rate increases to pump blood to your major muscle groups. Your breathing becomes rapid and shallow. To take in more oxygen, blood flow redirects away from your digestive system and toward your limbs. This is why you might feel nauseous or get butterflies. When nervous, your pupils dilate to take in more visual information, your muscles tense. Preparing for action, stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline flood your system, your prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for rational thinking. Planning and emotional regulation goes partially offline. Your amygdala, your brain's threat detection center, takes over. This response evolved over millions of years to help our ancestors survive genuine physical threats. If a lion appeared, you needed your body to react instantly without stopping to think it through. The problem is that your nervous system can't tell the difference between a lion and a job interview. It responds to perceived threat, not just actual physical danger. And in modern life, most of what we experience as threat is social. Walking into a room full of strangers triggers the same biological cascade as encountering a predator. Your rational brain knows you're not in danger, but your nervous system is screaming warnings based on ancient programming. The tribe might reject you. You might be cast out. You might not survive. This is why social anxiety feels so physical. It's not just in your head. It's a full-body experience, rooted in survival mechanisms that were adaptive for most of human history, but are wildly out of proportion to most modern situations. When you lose your calm in social situations, you're not weak or broken. You're experiencing a biological response that worked perfectly for keeping your ancestors alive. But that needs updating for the social challenges you face today. Why people lose their calm in social situations. Now that you understand the biology, let's talk about why it happens so reliably in social contexts. Human beings are deeply social creatures. For most of our evolutionary history, being part of a group wasn't just pleasant. It was essential for survival. Exile from the tribe was often a death sentence. As a result, our brains developed incredibly sensitive systems for detecting social threat. Rejection, judgment, exclusion, humiliation. These threats don't trigger your stress response occasionally. They trigger it constantly because your brain is always scanning for signs that you might be evaluated negatively. This is called social threat detection, and it operates largely below your conscious awareness. You walk into a room, and within milliseconds, your brain is processing, are these people like me or different from me? Do I have status here or am I low ranking? Are they paying attention to me? Is that attention positive or negative? Do I know how to behave in this context, or might I make a mistake? Is anyone here a potential threat to my reputation relationships, or resources. If your brain detects even subtle signs of social threat, someone's eyes pass over you without acknowledging you, a conversation stops when you approach, a joke you make lands flat, your stress response activates. And here's where it gets tricky. The stress response itself creates a negative feedback loop. When your sympathetic nervous system activates, your thinking becomes less clear because your prefrontal cortex is partially offline. You become hypervigilant to negative cues and miss positive ones. Your body language becomes tense and closed off. Your voice may shake or become that you struggle to access spontaneous, natural responses. All of these things make social interaction harder, which triggers more stress, which makes everything worse. You become trapped in a cycle where anxiety creates the very outcomes you feared. People lose their calm in social situations, not because they're doing something wrong, but because their nervous system is doing exactly what it evolved to do: protect them from potential social harm. The problem is that this protection system is oversensitive and often counterproductive in modern contexts. The anatomy of lost calm, a real-time example. Let's walk through what happens in your body and mind when you lose your calm. Imagine you're at a work meeting. Your manager asks you a question in front of the whole team, millisecond 0100. Your amygdala registers this as a potential threat. Social evaluation, opportunity for embarrassment. You might say something wrong. Everyone is watching. Second 1, your heart rate spikes. You feel heat in your face. Your breathing becomes shallow. Stress hormones begin flooding your system. Second 2 to 3, your prefrontal cortex, the part that would normally help you formulate a thoughtful answer, begins to go offline. Your working memory decreases. The answer you knew moments ago becomes harder to access. Second 4 to 5, you notice your physical symptoms. My heart is racing. Everyone can probably tell I'm nervous. This is embarrassing. These meta-observations trigger additional stress. Now you're anxious about being anxious. Second 6 to 10, you try to answer, but your mind feels blank. You start speaking, but you're not sure where you're going. Your voice sounds strange to your own ears. You're no longer thinking about the actual question. You're thinking about how you're being perceived. Second 11 to 20, you stumble through an answer that doesn't feel adequate. You notice your colleague's expression. Was that judgment? Did I just make myself look incompetent? Your stress intensifies. Aftermath, the meeting ends. Your nervous system remains activated for hours. You replay the moment over and over. You might even avoid speaking up in future meetings to prevent a repeat of this experience. This cascade happens not because you lack knowledge or competence, but because your nervous system hijacked your capacity for calm. Regulated response, the myth of natural confidence. One of the most damaging beliefs about calm and confidence is that some people are just born with it. That it's a fixed personality trait you either have or you don't. This is completely false, and believing it will keep you stuck. Yes, there are temperamental differences. Some people have naturally less reactive nervous systems. Some grew up in environments that fostered secure attachment and emotional regulation. Some have personality traits that make social interaction feel easier. But here's what research consistently shows. Emotional regulation is a learned skill. Studies of people who appear naturally confident reveal that they've usually had one or both of these advantages. Early experiences that taught their nervous system social situations are safe. Perhaps they had caregivers who were consistently responsive and attuned. Perhaps they had early social successes that built positive associations. Perhaps they were in environments where they could practice social skills without harsh consequences for mistakes. They've done, often unconsciously, the work of nervous system training. They've had enough positive social experiences to build tolerance. They've learned, through trial and error, to regulate their responses. They've developed habits and thought patterns that support calm. The crucial point is this: whatever they have, you can develop. Your nervous system has remarkable plasticity, the ability to change and adapt throughout your life. The pathways that currently trigger stress in social situations can be rewired. The patterns that lead to anxiety spirals can be interrupted and replaced. No one is born walking into rooms with perfect calm. It's a skill built through understanding, practice, and patience. Think of your nervous system like a muscle. Some people started with a bit more natural strength, but everyone can build capacity through training. Someone who started with less natural calm can absolutely surpass someone who had early advantages, but never developed the skill intentionally. The people you perceive as naturally confident have practiced. They've just practiced in ways and contexts that weren't visible to you what calm actually feels like. Now that we've cleared away the myths, let's talk about what genuine calm actually feels like in your body and mind. Physically, your breathing is deeper and slower, originating from your diaphragm rather than your chest. Your heart rate is steady, not pounding or racing. Your muscles are relaxed but alert, not clenched or rigid. Your face feels soft, not tight or frozen. You have a sense of being settled in your body, rather than feeling like you're floating above it or trying to, escape it. Your energy feels grounded and present rather than scattered or frenetic mentally. Your thoughts move at a manageable pace rather than racing. You can access your working memory and recall information when needed. You're able to focus on what's actually happening rather than catastrophizing about what might happen. There's space between your thoughts, moments of quiet rather than constant mental noise. You can observe your thoughts without being completely identified with them emotionally. You can feel your emotions without being overwhelmed by them. You have access to a range of responses rather than being locked into one reaction. Difficult feelings arise, but they pass through you rather than getting stuck. You don't need to perform or manage how you're being perceived. You can simply be socially. You can listen to others without planning what you'll say next. You notice what's happening in the room without absorbing everyone's energy. You can be present with silence without rushing to fill it. Your responses come from genuine engagement rather than anxiety-driven. In people-pleasing, this is not a constant state. Even people with excellent emotional regulation move in and out of calm throughout the day. What changes is how quickly you can return to regulation when you get knocked off center. Calm is not a destination you reach and then maintain forever. It's a skill you practice, a baseline you return to, a capacity you build over time. The 3 layers of calm. To truly understand calm, it helps to recognize that it operates on 3 interconnected levels. Physiological calm. This is regulation at the nervous system level. Your body is not in fight or flight. Your breathing is controlled. Your heart rate is steady. This is the foundation. Without physiological regulation, the other layers are nearly impossible to access. Psychological calm. This is regulation at the mental level. Your thoughts are clear rather than spinning. You can observe your experience without being swept away by it. You have access to choice in how you interpret situations and respond to them. Presence, calm. This is the quality of being fully here, now, engaged with life as it unfolds. It's not detachment, it's the opposite. It's being so grounded in yourself that you can be fully available to whatever's happening without losing yourself in it. Most people try to achieve calm by working only on the psychological level, trying to think their way into feeling better. But because your body and mind are inseparable systems, this rarely works. True calm is built from the ground up, starting with your physiology, extending into your psychology, and ultimately expressing itself as authentic presence. The promise of this work. Here's what's possible when you develop genuine calm. You'll walk into rooms and immediately feel more grounded. Your presence will communicate safety to others without you having to perform or try. You'll make clearer decisions because your prefrontal cortex remains online even under pressure. You'll build deeper connections because you can actually be present with people rather than managing your anxiety. You'll recover faster when things don't go as planned. You'll expand your comfort zone naturally, not through forcing yourself, but through building genuine capacity. Most importantly, you'll stop abandoning yourself in moments of stress. You'll learn to be the steady presence you've been looking for from the outside world. This is not easy work, but it's the most valuable work you can do. Chapter 2. Emotional Intelligence as the Foundation Calm. Without emotional intelligence is like a house without a foundation. It might look impressive from the outside, but it won't withstand pressure. You can learn breathing techniques, practice power poses, and memorize affirmations, but without the deeper capacity to understand and work with your emotions, your calm will remain superficial and fragile. Emotional intelligence is not a soft skill or a nice-to-have personality trait. It's the core infrastructure that makes lasting calm possible. In this chapter, we'll explore what emotional intelligence actually means in practice, why it's inseparable from genuine calm, and how to develop it systematically. You'll learn to recognize your emotional patterns, manage the internal narratives that create suffering, and choose intentional responses rather than being hijacked by automatic reactions. By the end of this chapter, you'll understand why some people can remain steady in situations that would destabilize most others, and you'll have a roadmap for developing that capacity yourself. What emotional intelligence actually is. The term emotional intelligence was popularized by psychologist Daniel Goleman in the 1990s, but it's often misunderstood. Many people think it means being nice, empathetic, or good at reading social cues. While these qualities can be part of emotional intelligence, they don't capture its essence. Emotional intelligence, at its core, is the ability to perceive, understand, use, and manage emotions, both your own and others. Let's break that down into 4 essential components. Self-awareness, the capacity to recognize what you're feeling in real time, understand where those feelings come from, and notice how they influence your thoughts and behavior. Self-management, the ability to regulate your emotional responses, especially under stress, and to choose actions aligned with your values rather than being controlled by momentary impulses. Social awareness, the skill of reading emotional currents in others and in groups, understanding different perspectives, and recognizing the unspoken dynamics in any situation. Relationship management, the capacity to use emotional awareness to navigate interactions effectively, communicate clearly, manage conflict, and build genuine connection. All 4 of these components are essential for maintaining calm in challenging situations. Without self-awareness, you can't notice when you're becoming dysregulated until you're already deep in reaction. Without self-management, awareness alone won't help you. You'll see yourself spiraling, but feel powerless to stop it. Without social awareness, you'll misread situations and respond to imagined threats rather than real ones. And without relationship management skills, even if you're internally calm, you won't be able to create calm in your interactions with others. The beautiful thing about emotional intelligence is that it's entirely learnable. You weren't born with a fixed capacity for it. Your current level of emotional intelligence is simply the result of what you've learned or haven't learned up to this point. And what can be learned can always be developed further. Self-awareness, noticing your emotional temperature. Self-awareness is the foundation of everything else. You cannot manage what you cannot see. Most people move through their days with surprisingly little awareness of their emotional state. They're vaguely stressed or fine or tired, but they don't notice the subtle shifts in their internal landscape until those shifts have already taken over. This is like driving a car while ignoring the dashboard. You don't notice the engine temperature rising until steam is pouring from under the hood. By then, the damage is done. Developing emotional self-awareness means learning to check your internal dashboard constantly, not obsessively, but with gentle, consistent attention, the emotional temperature. Scale 1 of the most practical tools for building self-awareness is what I call the emotional temperature scale. It's a simple 1-10 framework that helps you quantify your internal state 1 to 3. Cool and regulated. Your nervous system is calm. Your breathing is deep and natural. Your thoughts are clear. You feel grounded in your body. This is your optimal state for complex thinking, genuine connection, and creative problem solving. 6. Warming up, you're beginning to feel activation. Perhaps there's a flutter of nervousness before a meeting or a twinge of irritation in a conversation. Your breathing might be slightly faster. Thoughts might be speeding up. You're still largely in control, but you need to pay attention. This is the window where intervention is most effective. 9. Overheating, you're in fight or flight. Your heart is racing. Your thoughts are either spinning rapidly or going blank. Your body is tense. You're starting to react rather than respond. At this level, you've lost access to your higher brain functions. Complex reasoning is difficult. You're operating from survival mode. 10. Boiling over complete dysregulation. Panic, rage, or shutdown. At this level, you cannot think your way back to calm. You can only wait for your nervous system to eventually cycle down, which can take 20 minutes to several hours. The goal is not to always be at 1 to 3. Life naturally involves moving up and down this scale. The goal is to notice where you are so you can respond appropriately. Here's the practice, multiple times throughout your day. Pause for just 3 seconds and ask yourself, what's my emotional temperature right now? Just notice. Don't judge it or try to change it immediately. Simply observe. I'm at a 2 right now. I feel calm and focused. I'm at a 5. There's some anxiety about the presentation later. I'm at a 7. My jaw is clenched, and my thoughts are racing. This simple act of noticing creates what psychologists call the metacognitive awareness. You're not just experiencing an emotion. You're aware that you're experiencing it. This awareness alone creates space. Space is where choice lives. Recognizing your emotional signatures. Everyone has patterns in how they experience emotions. These are your emotional signatures, the specific ways feelings show up in your body and mind. For some people, anxiety appears first as tightness in the chest. For others, it's tension in the shoulders, or a racing mind, or nausea in the stomach. Anger might show up as heat in your face, or clenched fists, or a particular quality of thought. Learning your signatures means you can catch emotional activation early, before it escalates. Take a moment right now to reflect on your own patterns. Where in your body do you first feel anxiety? What happens to your breathing when you're stressed? How do your thoughts change when you're angry? What physical sensations accompany embarrassment or shame? Do you have a tendency to go up, activation, fight or flight, or down, shut down, freeze under pressure? Write these down. Become a researcher of your own internal experience. The more familiar you become with your emotional signatures, the faster you'll recognize when you're moving away from calm, and the more effectively you can intervene. The body as information system. Your body is constantly giving you information about your emotional state, but most people aren't listening. Western culture has trained us to live primarily in our heads, treating the body as a vehicle that carries our brain around. But from a nervous system perspective, this is backwards. Your body is not separate from your emotions, it is your emotions. What we call feelings are actually complex patterns of physical sensation. You don't have anxiety in your mind that then creates physical symptoms. The physical activation is the anxiety. The thoughts that accompany it are your mind's attempt to make sense of what your body is already experiencing. This is why you can't think your way out of dysregulation. You can't convince your body to calm down through logic. But you can learn to read what your body is telling you and respond in ways that help your nervous system return to regulation. Practice this several times a day. Do a quick body scan. Start at the top of your head and move your attention slowly downward. Face, jaw, neck, shoulders, chest, stomach, arms, hands, legs, feet. At each area, simply notice, is there tension, ease, temperature, sensation? Don't try to change anything. Just gather information. Over time, this practice builds a strong connection between your awareness and your body. You'll start noticing tension in your shoulders before it becomes a headache. You'll feel your breathing shift before anxiety fully takes hold. You'll recognize early warning signs that used to go unnoticed. This early recognition is power. It's the difference between catching a wave when it's still small versus trying to manage it once it's crashed over you. Managing internal narratives, your emotional temperature doesn't rise and fall randomly. It's driven largely by the stories you tell yourself about what's happening. Two people can walk into the exact same room and have completely different experiences, not because the room itself is different, but because they're running different narratives about what the room means. Person A walks into a networking event and thinks, everyone here probably knows each other already. I'm going to look awkward standing alone. People will judge me. I shouldn't have come. Person B walks into the same event and thinks, I don't know anyone yet, which means I have the opportunity to meet interesting people. Some conversations will flow naturally, others won't, and that's normal. I can leave whenever I want, same situation. Radically different internal narratives. Radically different emotional experiences. Most of the suffering we experience comes not from circumstances themselves, but from the stories we tell about circumstances. This doesn't mean circumstances don't matter. Of course they do. Genuine hardship is real. But between any external event and your emotional response to it, there's always an interpretation. A story, a meaning you're assigning, and stories can be examined, questioned, and sometimes rewritten. The anatomy of a destructive narrative. Let's look at how unhelpful internal narratives typically work. Something happens, a trigger. Your message in a group chat gets no responses. Your mind immediately generates a story. Nobody values what I have to say. I'm being ignored. I shouldn't have said anything. People probably think I'm stupid. This story creates an emotional response. Shame, anxiety, maybe anger. The emotional response creates physical sensations. Tightness in your chest. Heat in your face, churning in your stomach. The physical sensations reinforce the story. See? I really am upset. That means the story must be true. And now you're in a loop. The story creates emotion. The emotion reinforces the story. And both together, pull you further from calm. Here's what makes this particularly insidious. Your mind doesn't present these stories as interpretations. It presents them as facts. It doesn't say, one possible explanation is that people don't value what you said. It says, people don't value what you said. It feels like objective reality, but it's not. It's one interpretation among many possible interpretations. Maybe people saw your message and agreed with it so completely they didn't feel the need to respond. Maybe they're all busy and will respond later. Maybe the conversation naturally moved on, and it has nothing to do with the quality of your contribution. Maybe they did value it but didn't express it overtly. You don't know. You can't know. But your mind fills in the gaps with a narrative, and that narrative is usually negatively biased, especially if you struggle with anxiety or low self-worth. The practice of narrative awareness, the first step in managing destructive narratives, is recognizing that they're narratives at all, not facts. When you notice yourself becoming emotionally activated, pause and ask, what story am I telling myself right now? Literally identify the narrative. Sometimes it helps to write it down or say it out loud. All four of these components are essential for maintaining calm in challenging situations. Without self-awareness, you can't notice when you're becoming dysregulated until you're already deep in reaction. Without self-management, awareness alone won't help you. You'll see yourself spiraling, but feel powerless to stop it. Without social awareness, you'll misread situations and respond to imagined threats rather than real ones. And without relationship management skills, even if you're internally calm, you won't be able to create calm in your interactions with others. The beautiful thing about emotional intelligence is that it's entirely learnable. You weren't born with a fixed capacity for it. Your current level of emotional intelligence is simply the result of what you've learned or haven't learned up to this point. And what can be learned can always be developed further. Self-awareness, noticing your emotional temperature. Self-awareness is the foundation of everything else. You cannot manage what you cannot see. Most people move through their days with surprisingly little awareness of their emotional state. They're vaguely stressed or fine or tired, but they don't notice the subtle shifts in their internal landscape until those shifts have already taken over. This is like driving a car while ignoring the dashboard. You don't notice the engine temperature rising until steam is pouring from under the hood. By then, the damage is done. Developing emotional self-awareness means learning to check your internal dashboard constantly, not obsessively, but with gentle, consistent attention, the emotional temperature. Scale 1 of the most practical tools for building self-awareness is what I call the emotional temperature scale. It's a simple 1-10 framework that helps you quantify your internal state 1 to 3. Cool and regulated, you're a nervous system is calm. Your breathing is deep and natural. Your thoughts are clear. You feel grounded in your body. This is your optimal state for complex thinking, genuine connection, and creative problem solving. 6. Warming up, you're beginning to feel activation. Perhaps there's a flutter of nervousness before a meeting or a twinge of irritation in a conversation. Your breathing might be slightly faster. Thoughts might be speeding up. You're still largely in control, but you need to pay attention. This is the window where intervention is most effective. 9. Overheating, you're in fight or flight. Your heart is racing. Your thoughts are either spinning rapidly or going blank. Your body is tense. You're starting to react rather than respond. At this level, you've lost access to your higher brain functions. Complex reasoning is difficult. You're operating from survival mode. 10. Boiling over, complete dysregulation. Panic, rage, or shutdown. At this level, you cannot think your way back to calm. You can only wait for your nervous system to eventually cycle down, which can take 20 minutes to several hours. The goal is not to always be at 1 to 3. Life naturally involves moving up and down this scale. The goal is to notice where you are so you can respond appropriately. Here's the practice, multiple times throughout your day. Pause for just 3 seconds and ask yourself, what's my emotional temperature right now? Just notice. Don't judge it or try to change it immediately. Simply observe. I'm at a 2 right now. I feel calm and focused. I'm at a 5. There's some anxiety about the presentation later. I'm at a 7. My jaw is clenched, and my thoughts are racing. This simple act of noticing creates what psychologists call the metacognitive awareness. You're not just experiencing an emotion. You're aware that you're experiencing it. This awareness alone creates space. Space is where choice lives. Recognizing your emotional signatures. Everyone has patterns in how they experience emotions. These are your emotional signatures, the specific ways feelings show up in your body and mind. For some people, anxiety appears first as tightness in the chest. For others, it's tension in the shoulders, or a racing mind, or nausea in the stomach. Anger might show up as heat in your face, or clenched fists, or a particular quality of thought. Learning your signatures means you can catch emotional activation early, before it escalates. Take a moment right now to reflect on your own patterns. Where in your body do you first feel anxiety? What happens to your breathing when you're stressed? How do your thoughts change when you're angry? What physical sensations accompany embarrassment or shame? Do you have a tendency to go up, activation, fight or flight, or down, shut down, freeze under pressure? Write these down. Become a researcher of your own internal experience. The more familiar you become with your emotional signatures, the faster you'll recognize when you're moving away from calm, and the more effectively you can intervene. The body as information system. Your body is constantly giving you information about your emotional state, but most people aren't listening. Western culture has trained us to live primarily in our heads, treating the body as a vehicle that carries our brain around. But from a nervous system perspective, this is backwards. Your body is not separate from your emotions, it is your emotions. What we call feelings are actually complex patterns of physical sensation. You don't have anxiety in your mind that then creates physical symptoms. The physical activation is the anxiety. The thoughts that accompany it are your mind's attempt to make sense of what your body is already experiencing. This is why you can't think your way out of dysregulation. You can't convince your body to calm down through logic. But you can learn to read what your body is telling you and respond in ways that help your nervous system return to regulation. Practice this several times a day. Do a quick body scan. Start at the top of your head and move your attention slowly downward. Face, jaw, neck, shoulders, chest, stomach, arms, hands, legs, feet. At each area, simply notice, is there tension, ease, temperature, sensation? Don't try to change anything. Just gather information. Over time, this practice builds a strong connection between your awareness and your body. You'll start noticing tension in your shoulders before it becomes a headache. You'll feel your breathing shift before anxiety fully takes hold. You'll recognize early warning signs that used to go unnoticed. This early recognition is power. It's the difference between catching a wave when it's still small versus trying to manage it once it's crashed over you. Managing internal narratives, your emotional temperature doesn't rise and fall randomly. It's driven largely by the stories you tell yourself about what's happening. Two people can walk into the exact same room and have completely different experiences, not because the room itself is different, but because they're running different narratives about what the room means. Person A walks into a networking event and thinks, everyone here probably knows each other already. I'm going to look awkward standing alone. People will judge me. I shouldn't have come. Person B walks into the same event and thinks, I don't know anyone yet, which means I have the opportunity to meet interesting people. Some conversations will flow naturally, others won't, and that's normal. I can leave whenever I want, same situation. Radically different internal narratives. Radically different emotional experiences. Most of the suffering we experience comes not from circumstances themselves, but from the stories we tell about circumstances. This doesn't mean circumstances don't matter. Of course they do. Genuine hardship is real. But between any external event and your emotional response to it, there's always an interpretation. A story, a meaning you're assigning, and stories can be examined, questioned, and sometimes rewritten. The anatomy of a destructive narrative. Let's look at how unhelpful internal narratives typically work. Something happens, a trigger. Your message in a group chat gets no responses. Your mind immediately generates a story. Nobody values what I have to say. I'm being ignored. I shouldn't have said anything. People probably think I'm stupid. This story creates an emotional response. Shame, anxiety, maybe anger. The emotional response creates physical sensations. Tightness in your chest. Heat in your face, churning in your stomach. The physical sensations reinforce the story. See? I really am upset. That means the story must be true, and now you're in a loop. The story creates emotion, the emotion reinforces the story, and both together pull you further from calm. Here's what makes this particularly insidious. Your mind doesn't present these stories as interpretations. It presents them as facts. It doesn't say, one possible explanation is that people don't value what you said. It says, people don't value what you said. It feels like objective reality, but it's not. It's one interpretation among many possible interpretations. Maybe people saw your message and agreed with it so completely they didn't feel the need to respond. Maybe they're all busy and will respond later. Maybe the conversation naturally moved on, and it has nothing to do with the quality of your contribution. Maybe they did value it but didn't express it overtly. You don't know. You can't know. But your mind fills in the gaps with a narrative, and that narrative is usually negatively biased, especially if you struggle with anxiety or low self-worth. The practice of narrative awareness, the first step in managing destructive narratives, is recognizing that they're narratives at all, not facts. When you notice yourself becoming emotionally activated, pause and ask, what story am I telling myself right now? Literally identify the narrative. Sometimes it helps to write it down or say it out loud. I'm telling myself that I'm going to embarrass myself in this meeting. I'm telling myself that person was judging me. I'm telling myself that I don't belong here. Just naming the story begins to create distance from it. You shift from being inside the story to observing the story. Next, ask, is this story definitely true? Or is it one possible interpretation? Usually it's the latter. And once you recognize that your mind has generated one possible interpretation, you can ask, what are other possible interpretations? This isn't about forced positive thinking or lying to yourself. It's about loosening your mind's death grip on one narrative and opening up to a more accurate, nuanced view of reality. Sometimes the alternative narratives are more positive. Sometimes they're neutral. Sometimes they're just different. The point is not to replace a negative story with an artificially positive one. It's to recognize that you're working with incomplete information and your mind's first interpretation isn't necessarily correct. Common narrative traps certain patterns of thinking consistently pull people away from calm. Psychologists call these cognitive distortions. Let's look at the most common ones. Mind reading. Assuming you know what others are thinking about you, usually in negative terms. They think I'm boring. She's judging me right now. Everyone can tell I'm nervous. Reality check, you cannot read minds. What you're actually experiencing is your own projection, catastrophizing. Taking a situation and imagining the worst possible outcome, then treating that outcome as likely or inevitable. If I mess up this presentation, I'll lose my job. Then I won't be able to pay rent and I'll end up homeless. Reality check. Most feared outcomes don't happen, and even difficult outcomes are usually manageable. All or nothing thinking. Seeing situations in black and white with no middle ground. If I'm not perfect, I'm a failure. Either everyone likes me or no one does. Reality check. Life exists in shades of gray. Most things are both and not either or. Personalization. Assuming that everything is about you and taking responsibility for things outside your control. The conversation went quiet when I joined. I must have ruined it. My friend seems upset. I must have done something wrong. Reality check. Other people's moods and behaviors are influenced by countless factors that have nothing to do with you. Should statements. Imposing rigid rules on yourself and the world. I should be more confident. People should be nicer. I shouldn't feel this way. Reality check. Should create suffering. What is, you can work toward change without demanding that reality be different than it currently is. When you catch yourself in one of these patterns, you don't have to completely eliminate the thought. Just notice it and label it. There's mind reading. That's catastrophizing. I'm doing all or nothing thinking again. This simple act of labeling creates space between you and the thought. The thought loses some of its power. You remember that thoughts are events in your mind, not facts about reality, choosing responses instead of reacting. Here's where emotional intelligence moves from awareness into action. Self-awareness tells you what you're feeling. Narrative management helps you work with the stories driving those feelings. But neither of these is enough if you still react automatically in the moment. The difference between emotionally intelligent people and everyone else isn't that they don't feel strong emotions. It's that they've developed the capacity to pause before acting on those emotions. This pause, this tiny gap between stimulus and response, is where freedom lives. The stimulus-response gap. Viktor Frankl, psychiatrist and Holocaust survivor, wrote, "Between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. For most people, most of the time, there is no space. Stimulus and response are fused together. Someone criticizes you. You defend yourself. You feel anxious. You avoid. Someone cuts you off in traffic. You rage. You're in an uncomfortable social situation. You check your phone. These reactions happen so quickly they feel like they're one event, not two. But they're not. There's always a gap. It's just happening too fast for you to notice. Developing emotional intelligence means learning to expand that gap, to insert awareness between what happens and what you do about it. The pause practice. This is one of the most powerful practices you can develop. When you notice emotional activation, remember your temperature scale. You practice pausing before you respond. Not a long pause, not an awkward silence, just a breath, a moment of awareness. In that moment, ask yourself one simple question. What response would I choose if I were calm right now? Not how should I respond? Should creates pressure. Not what's the perfect response? Perfection creates paralysis. Simply, what would calm me choose to do? Sometimes the answer is the same as your reactive impulse. Sometimes it's different. But asking the question creates choice. Let's say you're in a meeting and someone dismisses your idea in a way that feels disrespectful. Your reactive impulse might be to either defend yourself aggressively or shut down and say nothing. But if you pause and ask, what would calm me choose? You might find a third option. I notice I'm having a strong reaction to how that was delivered. I'd like to understand your concern about my suggestion better. This response acknowledges your experience without being controlled by it. It keeps the conversation moving forward rather than escalating or avoiding. Creating your response, menu 1 reason. People react automatically is that they haven't pre-decided how they want to handle common challenging situations. When stress hits and your prefrontal cortex starts going offline, You default to whatever pattern is most deeply ingrained, which is usually your earliest, least sophisticated coping mechanism. You can counteract this by creating what I call a response menu, a set of pre-planned responses for situations that typically destabilize. You think about the scenarios that most often pull you out of. Then calm. Someone challenges you publicly. You make a mistake in front of others. You're in a group and don't know what to say. Someone is angry with you. You feel left out or ignored. You're asked a question and your mind goes blank for each scenario. You write down 2 to 3 responses that feel aligned with who you want to be. These become your go-to options when your reactive brain tries to take over. Example, response menu for someone challenges me publicly. Acknowledge their point before responding. That's a fair question. Let me think about that for a moment. Ask for clarification. Can you help me understand what concerns you most about this approach? Express genuine openness. I hadn't considered that angle. Tell me more about what you're thinking. When you've pre-decided on responses, you don't have to think them up in the moment when your nervous system is activated. You've essentially created a calm brain script that you can access even when you're not feeling calm. This isn't about being inauthentic or scripted. It's about giving your regulated self a voice, even in moments when your dysregulated self wants to take over. How emotionally intelligent people create a calm presence is talk about what emotional intelligence looks like in practice, specifically, how it creates the quality of calm presence that others find magnetic. They feel their feelings without broadcasting. The emotionally intelligent people don't suppress their emotions or pretend they don't exist. But they also don't let every internal fluctuation become visible to everyone around them. If they're nervous before a presentation, they feel the nervousness in their body. They acknowledge it internally. They might even name it. There's anxiety, but they don't let that anxiety dictate their behavior or hijack the room's energy. This is different from fake. Until you make it, they're not pretending to feel something they don't. They're simply creating a boundary between their internal experience and their external expression. Think of it like this. You can be a lake with storms passing across its surface while remaining calm at depth. The storms are real. You're not denying them. But you're not only the storm, they stay curious. Instead of defensive when challenged, criticized, or confronted with a perspective different from their own, emotionally intelligent people lead with curiosity rather than defensiveness. Their default response is not, "You're wrong," or "That's not fair," but "Tell me more about how you see it. This doesn't mean they're pushovers or that they never disagree. It means they're secure enough in themselves that differing opinions don't feel like threats to their identity. This creates calm in 2 ways. First, it keeps their own nervous system regulated. Curiosity activates different neural pathways than defensiveness. When you're genuinely curious, you can't simultaneously be in fight or flight. Second, it de-escalates tension in others. When someone challenges you expecting a fight and instead encounters openness, it disarms them. The interaction shifts from combat to conversation. They give others space to feel without taking responsibility for those feelings. One of the most important aspects of emotional intelligence is understanding where your responsibility ends and others begins. Many people who struggle with staying calm in social situations have poor emotional boundaries. They feel responsible for managing everyone else's emotions. If someone is uncomfortable, they rush to fix it. If someone is upset, they absorb it as their fault. If someone is disappointed, they feel like they've failed. This creates an impossible situation. You cannot control other people's feelings. You can influence them, certainly, but ultimately, each person's emotional experience is their own. Emotionally intelligent people understand this deeply. They can witness someone else's discomfort, frustration, or disappointment without taking it on, or feeling compelled to immediately resolve it. This doesn't make them cold or uncaring. It makes them stable. If you're in a conversation and someone becomes upset, you can care about their experience while recognizing it's their experience to have. You can offer support without collapsing into their emotional state. You can say, "I can see this is hard for you," without feeling. Like you need to make it not hard. This boundary, this clear sense of where you end and others begin, is essential for maintaining your own regulation in emotionally charged situations. They know their values and let them guide behavior emotionally. Intelligent people have done the work of clarifying what actually matters to them. When they're making decisions, especially difficult ones, they're not asking what will make people like me or what will keep me safe. They're asking what aligns with who I want to be. This creates an internal anchor point. Even when everything around you is chaotic, if you know your values, you have a reference point for choosing your response. Let's say one of your core values is honesty. You're in a situation where lying would be easier, would avoid conflict, would keep you safe. The emotionally reactive response might be to lie. The emotionally intelligent response is to check in with your value. Does lying align with who I want to be? If the answer is no, you find a way to tell the truth, perhaps diplomatically, perhaps with care for others' feelings, but truth nonetheless. When your behavior is aligned with your values, you experience a kind of integrity, literally. Integration that creates internal calm, even in external chaos. They practice self-compassion, especially in failure perhaps. Most importantly, emotionally intelligent people have learned to be kind to themselves when they struggle. They don't demand perfection. They don't catastrophize mistakes. They don't use their failures as evidence of fundamental unworthiness. When they lose their calm, and everyone does sometimes, they notice it, learn from it, and move forward without shame spirals. Self-compassion is not self-indulgence or letting yourself off the hook. It's treating yourself with the same kindness you'd offer a good friend who was struggling, instead of, I can't believe I got so anxious in that meeting. I'm such a disaster. An emotionally intelligent person might think, that was hard. My nervous system got activated. That's understandable given the stakes. What can I learn from this for next time? This self-compassion creates resilience. When you're not afraid of your own judgment, you're more willing to take risks, try new things, and enter uncomfortable situations, all of which expand your capacity for calm over time. Building your emotional intelligence. A practice plan emotional intelligence isn't developed through information alone. It's built through consistent practice. Here's a simple daily framework. Morning, 5 minutes. Check in with your emotional temperature. Where am I starting today? Do a quick body scan. What am I carrying physically? Set an intention. How do I want to show up today? Throughout the day, practice the pause. Before responding in any charged moment, take one breath. Notice your narratives. When you feel activated, ask, what story am I telling? Check your boundaries. Am I taking responsibility for others' emotions? Evening, 5 minutes. Reflect on your day. When did I stay calm? When did I lose it? Practice self-compassion. What did I learn? How can I grow from this? Acknowledge growth. What did I do well today, even if small? This isn't about achieving perfection. It's about building awareness, creating choice, and gradually expanding your capacity for emotional regulation. Emotional intelligence is the foundation. With it, every other tool and technique in this book will be more effective. Without it, you'll be building on unstable ground. Let's continue building Chapter 3, grounding yourself before entering any space you're standing outside a door. Maybe it's a conference room where you're about to give a presentation. Maybe it's a party where you'll know only one person. Maybe it's a difficult conversation you've been avoiding. Maybe it's just a regular Monday morning at the office. But your nervous system doesn't know that. It only knows you're about to be seen, evaluated, and potentially judged. This threshold, moment, the space between where you are and where you're going, is one of the most powerful opportunities you have to influence your experience of what comes next. Most people waste this moment. They rush through the door while their nervous system is still ramping up. They enter already dysregulated, already defensive, already performing. They're trying to manage their anxiety while simultaneously navigating a complex social environment, which is like trying to tune your instrument while the orchestra is already playing. There's a better way. This chapter is about the practice of grounding the intentional process of regulating your nervous system before you enter any space. Think of it as preloading calm, creating internal stability before external demands hit. The techniques you'll learn here are not abstract concepts or wishful thinking. They're concrete, neuroscience-based practices that directly influence your autonomic nervous system, shifting you from sympathetic activation, stress response, into parasympathetic regulation, rest and digest. They work not because they're magic, but because they're targeting the actual biological mechanisms that create or prevent calm. Let's begin. Why grounding before entry changes? Everything here is a truth that will transform how you approach challenging situations. The state you enter a room in largely determines the experience you'll have in that room. If you walk in with your nervous system already activated, heart racing, breathing shallow, thoughts spinning, you're starting from a deficit. Your brain is already in threat detection mode. Your body is already primed for danger. Every ambiguous social cue will be interpreted through the lens of threat. Every silence will feel uncomfortable. Every moment of uncertainty will spike your anxiety higher. But if you enter grounded, nervous system regulated, breathing steady, body relaxed, mind clear, you're starting from a position of strength. You have full access to your prefrontal cortex. You can think clearly. You can read situations accurately. You can respond rather than react. The difference between these two starting points cannot be overstated. Think of it like the difference between starting a race already exhausted versus starting fresh. The race itself might be exactly the same, but your capacity to run it well is completely different. What's remarkable is that creating this shift doesn't require hours of preparation. Often it takes just 2 to 5 minutes of intentional practice. But those minutes create a foundation that influences everything that follows. The practices in this chapter are designed to be done immediately before entering any space where you want to show up as your most grounded self. Some can be done in a bathroom, some in your car, some while standing in a hallway. All of them are invisible to others. These are internal shifts that create external impact. Understanding your pre-entry pattern. Before we dive into grounding techniques, let's examine what you're currently doing in those moments before entering challenging spaces. Most people have a habitual pre-entry pattern, but they've never consciously examined it. It usually looks something like this: rushing to arrive on time, or arriving early and then sitting anxiously waiting, mentally rehearsing what they'll say, which often spirals into catastrophizing what could go wrong. Checking their phone repeatedly as a distraction from building anxiety, reviewing their appearance obsessively, looking for flaws, trying to psych themselves up with internal pep talks that feel hollow, taking shallow, rapid breaths without realizing it, tensing their body in preparation for an imagined threat. None of these behaviors calm your nervous system. Most of them actively dysregulate it. Take a moment right now to reflect on your own pattern. Think about the last few times you entered a situation that felt socially challenging. What were you doing in the 5 minutes before you walked in? What was happening in your body, your breathing, your posture, your muscle tension? What were you thinking about? How would you rate your emotional temperature when you actually entered? Write this down. Awareness of your current pattern is the first step toward changing it. The goal isn't to judge yourself for what you've been doing. The goal is simply to recognize that you have a pattern, that it's been operating on autopilot, and that you can choose to create a new one. Breath control, the foundation of all grounding. If you learn only one technique from this entire chapter, make it this: conscious breath control is the fastest, most reliable way to shift your nervous system from activation to regulation. This isn't mystical breathing wisdom passed down through ancient traditions, though many ancient traditions did understand this intuitively. This is neuroscience. Your breath is directly connected to your autonomic nervous system through a nerve called the vagus nerve, the primary pathway through which your parasympathetic nervous system operates. When you breathe in specific ways, you literally send signals to your brain that influence whether you're in stress mode or calm mode. Here's how it works. Rapid, shallow breathing, which happens automatically when you're anxious, signals to your brain, we're in danger. Stay alert. Keep the stress response active. Slow, deep breathing, particularly when your exhale is longer than your inhale, signals to your brain, we're safe. It's okay to relax. Shift into rest and regulation. Your brain doesn't ignore these signals. It responds to them. You can think of breathwork as a direct communication channel to your nervous system. A way to tell your body, it's okay. We're safe. You can calm down now. The 4 to 7, 8 breath, your go-to pre-entry technique. There are dozens of effective breathing techniques, but for pre-entry grounding, I recommend starting with the 4, 7, 8 breath. Developed by Dr. Andrew Weil, it's simple, powerful, and can be done anywhere without drawing attention. Here's how. Exhale completely through your mouth, making a soft whoosh sound. This empties your lungs. Close your mouth and inhale quietly through your nose for a count of 4. Count silently. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold your breath for a count of 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Exhale completely through your mouth for a count of 8, making that soft whoosh sound again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That's 1 cycle. Do 4 cycles. This takes approximately 1 minute. In that minute, you've sent powerful calming signals to your nervous system. The magic is in the ratio. The extended hold and the long exhale activate your parasympathetic response much more effectively than equal breathing. The hold allows oxygen to be fully absorbed. The extended exhale stimulates your vagus nerve and signals safety. When to use it? Do 4 cycles of 4 to 7, 8 breathing in the 2 minutes before you walk into any challenging space. If you're sitting in your car outside an event, do it there. If you're in a hallway before a meeting, step into a bathroom or quieter space. If you're already in the space but haven't engaged yet, maybe you're early and sitting in a waiting area, you can do it subtly while appearing to just be sitting quietly. Box breathing, for longer preparation periods. If you have 5 to 10 minutes before entering a space, box breathing is excellent for creating deeper regulation. The Chapter 3, grounding yourself before entering. Any space, you're standing outside a door. Maybe it's a conference room where you're about to give a presentation. Maybe it's a party where you'll know only one person. Maybe it's a difficult conversation you've been avoiding. Maybe it's just a regular Monday morning at the office. But your nervous system doesn't know that. It only knows you're about to be seen, evaluated, and potentially judged. This threshold moment, the space between where you are and where you're going, is one of the most powerful opportunities you have to influence your experience of what comes next. Most people waste this moment. They rush through the door while their nervous system is still ramping up. They enter already dysregulated, already defensive, already performing. They're trying to manage their anxiety while simultaneously navigating a complex social environment, which is like trying to tune your instrument while the orchestra is already playing. There's a better way. This chapter is about the practice of grounding, the intentional process of regulating your nervous system before you enter any space. Think of it as preloading calm, creating internal stability before external demands hit. The techniques you'll learn here are not abstract concepts or wishful thinking. They're concrete, neuroscience-based practices that directly influence your autonomic nervous system, shifting you from sympathetic activation, stress response, into parasympathetic regulation, rest and digest. They work not because they're magic, but because they're targeting the actual biological mechanisms that create or prevent calm. Let's begin. Why grounding before entry changes? Everything here is a truth that will transform how you approach challenging situations. The state you enter a room in largely determines the experience you'll have in that room. If you walk in with your nervous system already activated, heart racing, breathing shallow, thoughts spinning, you're starting from a deficit. Your brain is already in threat detection mode. Your body is already primed for danger. Every ambiguous social cue will be interpreted through the lens of threat. Every silence will feel uncomfortable. Every moment of uncertainty will spike your anxiety higher. But if you enter grounded, nervous system regulated, breathing steady, body relaxed, mind clear, you're starting from a position of strength. You have full access to your prefrontal cortex. You can think clearly, You can read situations accurately. You can respond rather than react. The difference between these two starting points cannot be overstated. Think of it like the difference between starting a race already exhausted versus starting fresh. The race itself might be exactly the same, but your capacity to run it well is completely different. What's remarkable is that creating this shift doesn't require hours of preparation. Often it takes just 2 to 5 minutes of intentional practice, but those minutes create a foundation that influences everything that follows. The practices in this chapter are designed to be done immediately before entering any space where you want to show up as your most grounded self. Some can be done in a bathroom, some in your car, some while standing in a hallway. All of them are invisible to others. These are internal shifts that create external impact. Understanding your pre-entry pattern. Before we dive into grounding techniques, let's examine what you're currently doing in those moments before entering challenging spaces. Most people have a habitual pre-entry pattern, but they've never consciously examined it. It usually looks something like this: rushing to arrive on time or arriving early and then sitting anxiously waiting, mentally rehearsing what they'll say, which often spirals into catastrophizing what could go wrong, checking their phone repeatedly as a distraction from building anxiety, reviewing their appearance obsessively, looking for flaws, trying to psych themselves up with internal pep talks that feel hollow, taking shallow, rapid breaths without realizing it, tensing their body in preparation for an imagined threat. None of these behaviors calm your nervous system. Most of them actively dysregulate it. Take a moment right now to reflect on your own pattern. Think about the last few times you entered a situation that felt socially challenging. What were you doing in the 5 minutes before you walked in? What was happening in your body, your breathing, your posture, your muscle tension? What were you thinking about? How would you rate your emotional temperature when you actually entered? Write this down. Awareness of your current pattern is the first step toward changing it. The goal isn't to judge yourself for what you've been doing. The goal is simply to recognize that you have a pattern, that it's been operating on autopilot, and that you can choose to create a new one. Breath control, the foundation of all grounding. If you learn only one technique from this entire chapter, make it this. Conscious breath control is the fastest, most reliable way to shift your nervous system from activation to regulation. This isn't mystical breathing wisdom passed down through ancient traditions, though many ancient traditions did understand this intuitively. This is neuroscience. Your breath is directly connected to your autonomic nervous system through a nerve called the vagus nerve, the primary pathway through which your parasympathetic nervous system operates. When you breathe in specific ways, you literally send signals to your brain that influence whether you're in stress mode or calm mode. Here's how it works. Rapid, shallow breathing, which happens automatically when you're anxious, signals to your brain, we're in danger. Stay alert. Keep the stress response active. Slow, deep breathing, particularly when your exhale is longer than your inhale, signals to your brain, we're safe. It's okay to relax. Shift into rest and regulation. Your brain doesn't ignore these signals. It responds to them. You can think of breathwork as a direct communication channel to your nervous system, a way to tell your body, it's okay, we're safe, you can calm down now. The 4 to 7, 8 breath, your go-to pre-entry technique. There are dozens of effective breathing techniques, but for pre-entry grounding, I recommend starting with the 4, 7, 8 breath, developed by Dr. Andrew Weil. It's simple, powerful, and can be done anywhere without drawing attention. Here's how. Exhale completely through your mouth, making a soft whoosh sound. This empties your lungs. Close your mouth and inhale quietly through your nose for a count of 4. Count silently. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold your breath for a count of 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Exhale completely through your mouth for a count of 8, making that soft whoosh sound again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That's 1 cycle. Do 4 cycles. This takes approximately 1 minute. In that minute, you've sent powerful calming signals to your nervous system. The magic is in the ratio. The extended hold and the long exhale activate your parasympathetic response much more effectively than equal breathing. The hold allows oxygen to be fully absorbed. The extended exhale stimulates your vagus nerve and signals safety. When to use it? Do 4 cycles of 4 to 7-8 breathing in the 2 minutes before you walk into any challenging space. If you're sitting in your car outside an event, do it there. If you're in a hallway before a meeting, step into a bathroom or quieter space. If you're already in the space but haven't engaged yet, maybe you're early and sitting in a waiting area, you can do it subtly while appearing to just be sitting quietly. Box breathing for longer. Preparation periods if you have 5 to 10 minutes before entering a space. Box breathing is excellent for creating deeper regulation. Inhale. Pattern is simple and equal. Through your nose for 4. Counts hold for 4 counts, exhale through your nose. For 4 counts, hold empty for 4 counts, repeat for 5 to 10 minutes. This creates a meditative rhythm that both calms your nervous system and gives your mind something to focus on other than your anxious thoughts. Navy SEALs use this technique before high-stress situations because it works. The physiological sigh for quick resets, discovered by Stanford neuroscientist Dr. Andrew Huberman. The physiological sigh is the fastest way to reduce stress in real time. Here's how. Take a deep breath in through your nose, filling your lungs about 80% before exhaling. Take a second sharp inhale through your nose to completely fill your lungs. Exhale slowly and completely through your mouth. That's it. In one cycle, do it 2 to 3 times. This works because the double inhale reinflates the tiny air sacs in your lungs, alveoli, that collapse during stress, and the long exhale immediately activates your parasympathetic nervous system. Use this when you're already in a space and feel your anxiety spiking. It's subtle enough that others won't notice, but powerful enough to bring your activation level down quickly. Making breath control automatic. The challenge with breathwork is that when you need it most, when you're highly activated, you're least likely to remember to do it. Your stressed brain doesn't think, "Oh, I should do some breathing exercises right now." This is why practice is essential. For the next 2 weeks, practice your chosen breathing technique at least once per day when you're not stressed. Do it in the morning. Do it before bed. Do it while waiting for your coffee to brew. By practicing when you're already calm, you build the neural pathways that make the technique accessible when you actually need it. You're essentially training your brain. This is what we do when we want to regulate. Over time, conscious breathing becomes an automatic response to stress rather than something you have to remember to do. Slow body. Movement techniques, your body and your emotional state are not separate systems. They're one integrated system. When your body is tense, rigid, and moving quickly, your mind follows. When your body is relaxed, fluid, and moving slowly, your mind follows that too. This is called embodied cognition. The principle that your physical state shapes your psychological state. You can use this principle deliberately before entering any space. Progressive muscle relaxation. Releasing stored tension, anxiety doesn't just live in your thoughts, it lives in your muscles. When you're stressed, you unconsciously tighten your jaw, clench your shoulders, tense your stomach, curl your hands into fists. This tension feeds back into your brain, reinforcing the message that there's something to be tense about. Progressive muscle relaxation systematically releases this tension. Here's a quick version you can do in 3 to 4 minutes. Starting with your hands, tense each muscle group as hard as you can for 5 seconds, then release completely for 10 seconds. Notice the difference between tension and release. Move. Through your body, hands, make tight. Fists, release. Arms, flex your biceps, release. Shoulders, raise them toward your ears, release face. Scrunch everything toward the center, release jaw, clench. Tightly. Release stomach, tighten your core, release. Legs, flex your thighs and calves, release. Feet, curl your toes, release. After the last release, take a moment to notice how your body feels. This practice not only releases physical tension, but also increases your awareness of where you're holding stress. Do this in your car, in a bathroom, or anywhere private before entering a challenging space. Grounding through physical sensation. Another. Powerful technique is using physical sensation to anchor yourself in the present moment and out of your anxious thoughts. Try this right now. Place both feet flat on the ground. Really feel the contact between your feet and the floor. Notice the pressure, the temperature, the texture through your shoes or socks. Now press your feet down firmly as if you're rooting yourself into the earth. Hold this pressure for 10 seconds while breathing normally. This simple act sends signals to your brain. I am here. I am solid. I'm grounded. You can combine this with other sensory grounding techniques. Touch something nearby and focus entirely on its texture. Smooth, rough, cold. Warm, notice 5 things you can see in detail: colors, shapes. Patterns, listen for the most distant sound you can hear. Then the closest, these practices pull you out of your head, where anxiety lives, and into your direct sensory experience, where anxiety can't survive. The slow walk, moving into calm if. You have space and privacy, try this. Before entering, take a slow, deliberate walk for 2-3 minutes, not your normal walking pace. Deliberately slow. Each step intentional as you walk. Notice the sensation of your feet making contact with the ground feel. Your weight shifting from one foot to the other. Keep your breathing slow and steady. Let your arms swing naturally at your sides. This slow movement activates your parasympathetic nervous system while also giving your mind something to focus on. By the time you finish, your body has shifted out of fight or flight and into a more regulated state. Shaking it out. Releasing stress. Physically, animals in the wild do this instinctively after a stressful encounter. They literally shake their bodies to discharge the stress hormones and nervous energy. You can do the same. Stand up. Shake your hands vigorously for 10-15 seconds. Then shake your arms. Then your whole body. Let everything move loosely, including your head, gently. This looks silly, which is why you do it somewhere private. But it works. You're literally shaking off the nervous energy that's been building. Follow it with 3 deep breaths and notice how different your body feels. Pre-room, mental reset. Your mind is powerful. The stories you tell yourself in the moments before entering a space will shape your experience in that space more than almost any external factor. This section is about consciously choosing those stories rather than letting your anxious brain run its default programming. The intention-setting practice. Before you walk through any door, take 30 seconds to set a clear intention for how you want to be in that space. Not what you want to accomplish. Not what outcome you're hoping for. Simply, how do I want to show up? Examples. I want to be present and curious. I want to be open and genuine. I want to listen more than I speak. I want to be calm and grounded, regardless of what happens. State your intention clearly in your mind, or even whisper it to yourself. This simple act shifts your brain from anxiety about outcomes, which you can't control, to intention about your own presence, which you can influence. Your intention becomes an anchor point. When you feel yourself getting pulled into anxiety during the interaction, you can return to it. My intention was to be present. Am I being present right now? If not, I can choose to come back. Reframing the situation, remember from Chapter 2 that your interpretation of a situation drives your emotional response to it. Before entering, you can consciously choose an interpretation that serves you. Your anxious brain might be saying, everyone in this room is more confident than me. They're going to judge me. I'm going to say something stupid. You can acknowledge that narrative, then deliberately choose a different one. I'm walking into a room of other human beings, most of whom have their own insecurities. Some conversations will flow easily, others won't. Whatever happens, I'll handle it. This is an opportunity to practice staying grounded. This isn't positive thinking or self-deception. It's choosing the most useful frame for the situation you're about to enter. Try this reframe specifically. Instead of thinking I have to perform well, think I get to practice staying calm. That subtle shift from pressure to practice can dramatically reduce your anxiety. Practice mode allows for imperfection. Practice mode is about learning, not proving. Practice mode takes the stakes down. The compassionate observer perspective here is a powerful mental shift you can make before entering. Imagine that you're watching yourself from the perspective of someone who cares about you deeply, a loving friend, a supportive mentor, a kind version of your future self. From that perspective, what would they want you to know before you walk in? They probably wouldn't say, "Don't mess this up." They'd say something like, "You're going to be okay. Just be yourself." People will respond to your genuine presence. And if it doesn't go perfectly, that's okay too. I'm proud of you for showing up. This compassionate observer perspective activates a different part of your brain, the part that can hold yourself with kindness, rather than harsh judgment. Spend 30 seconds before entering connecting with this perspective. Let it soften the harsh voice of your inner critic. The 5-year future test, when you're feeling intense anxiety about a social situation, your brain is catastrophizing the stakes. It feels like everything depends on this moment going perfectly. Before entering, ask yourself, will this matter in 5 years? Usually the answer is no. In 5 years, you probably won't remember this specific interaction at all. This isn't nihilism, it's perspective. When you recognize that the stakes are actually much lower than your anxiety is telling you they are, your nervous system can relax. You're not walking into a life or death situation. You're walking into a moment that will pass, be forgotten, and have almost no bearing on the trajectory of your life. This doesn't mean the situation doesn't matter at all. It means it doesn't matter as much as your anxiety insists it does. Visualizing your emotional state visualization isn't magical thinking. It's a form of mental rehearsal that prepares your brain and nervous system for the experience you're about to have. Athletes use visualization before competitions. Surgeons use it before complex procedures. You can use it before entering any social space. The grounded self-visualization, close your eyes. Take 3 slow breaths. Now visualize yourself walking into the space you're about to enter. But visualize yourself as your most grounded, centered, calm version. See yourself moving slowly and deliberately, breathing deeply and naturally, making comfortable eye contact. Speaking with a steady, clear voice, listening with genuine attention, maintaining relaxed, open body language. Don't visualize a perfect outcome. Visualize yourself being calm, regardless of what happens around you. Feel what that calmness feels like in your body. Notice your steady heartbeat, your relaxed shoulders, your clear mind. Spend 1 to 2 minutes in this visualization. This practice creates neural activation patterns that make the visualized state more accessible when you actually enter. Your brain doesn't fully distinguish between vivid visualization and actual experience. Both create similar neural pathways. The energy field visualization. This one might sound esoteric, but many people find it powerfully effective. Imagine that you have an energy field around your body, like a bubble of calm that extends about 3 feet in all directions. This field is porous enough that you can connect with others, but strong enough that you're not absorbing everyone else's anxiety or chaos. As you prepare to enter a space, take a moment to feel this field around you. Breathe into it. Strengthen it. Tell yourself, I'm carrying my own atmosphere. I can be affected by others without absorbing their state. This visualization creates a psychological boundary that helps you stay regulated, even in chaotic environments. We'll explore this more deeply in Chapter 4, but the practice begins here. Before you even walk in, the anchor object technique. This is a tangible grounding tool you can use both before and during challenging situations. Choose a small object you can carry with you, a smooth stone, a specific coin, a piece of jewelry, anything that fits in your pocket or can be worn. Before entering, hold this object in your hand. Close your eyes. Take 3 deep breaths. As you breathe, imagine that this object is absorbing all your calm, centered energy. Imagine it becoming infused with the feeling of groundedness. Tell yourself, whenever I touch this object, I can remember this calm state. Then put it in your pocket or wear it during the interaction. If you start to feel dysregulated, you can subtly touch this object. Your brain will associate it with the calm state you created, and it will help you return to regulation. This works because you're creating what psychologists call an anchor, a physical reminder linked to a specific emotional state. The more you use it, the stronger the association becomes. Putting it all together, your pre-entry protocol. You don't need to do every technique in this chapter every time you enter a space. That would be overwhelming and time-consuming. Instead, create a simple protocol, a consistent routine you do before entering any situation where you want to show up grounded. Here's a suggested 5-minute protocol you can customize. Minutes 1 to 2. Breathwork 4-7-8 breathing, 4 cycles. Or box breathing, minute 3. Physical grounding progressive. Muscle relaxation, quick version, or slow. Walking minute 4. Mental reset, set your intention. And reframe the situation, minute 5. Visualization, de oui. Yourself calm and grounded in the space, that's it. 5 minutes. But those 5 minutes create a completely different starting point. If you only have 2 minutes, prioritize breathing and intention setting. If you have 10 minutes, you can go deeper with each practice. The key is consistency. Make pre-entry grounding a non-negotiable ritual. Just like you wouldn't show up to a job interview without preparing what you'll say. Don't show up to any social situation without preparing your nervous system. Troubleshooting common challenges. I forget to ground myself until I'm already in the situation. Set reminders. If you know you have a challenging event on Tuesday, set an alarm for 10 minutes before. Put a note on your car dashboard. Ask a friend to text you a reminder. Also, start practicing grounding even before low-stakes situations, before going to the grocery store, before a regular work meeting, before dinner with family. The more you practice, the more automatic it becomes. When I'm really anxious, breathing exercises don't seem to work. They're still working. They're just working against a lot of activation. If you're already at an 8 or 9 on the emotional temperature scale, breathing won't instantly bring you to a 2, but it will bring you down to a 6 or 7, which is enough to access better thinking and behavior. Also, this is why prevention matters. If you ground yourself before your anxiety spikes, you never reach that 8 or 9 in the first place. I feel stupid doing these practices. That's your anxious brain trying to talk you out of doing something that would actually help. Ignore it. Olympic athletes visualize before competing. Elite performers use breathwork. Navy SEALs practice grounding. These are not stupid practices. They're evidence-based techniques used by people who perform under immense pressure. You don't have to tell anyone you're doing them. They're your private ritual for showing up as your best self. What if someone sees me doing these techniques? Most of them are invisible or can be done privately. Do breathwork in your car or a bathroom. Do visualization with your eyes open, appearing to just be thinking. Physical grounding can be done subtly, and honestly, if someone did notice you taking a moment to breathe deeply and center yourself before a challenging situation, they'd probably respect it more than judge it. The compound effect of consistent grounding. Here's what happens when you make pre-entry grounding a consistent practice. In the short term, you enter each situation more regulated, which means you have better experiences, which builds positive associations with social situations rather than negative ones. In the medium term, your nervous system learns that social situations don't have to be threatening. Your baseline anxiety decreases. You naturally feel calmer even without doing the practices. In the long term, you become someone who carries calm with them wherever they go. Grounding is no longer something you have to consciously do. It becomes who you are. The person you are before you walk through the door determines the person you'll be on the other side. Choose to ground yourself. Choose to enter regulated. Choose to bring your calm with you. Chapter 4. Reading the room without absorbing the room there. Is a particular skill that separates people who maintain their calm in any environment from those who get swept away by whatever energy surrounds them. It's not about being oblivious to what's happening around you, quite the opposite. It's about being exquisitely aware of the emotional currents in any space while simultaneously maintaining your own center. This is the art of, reading the room without absorbing the room. Think about the last time you walked into a tense meeting, a chaotic family gathering, or a party where the energy felt off. What happened to your own emotional state? If you're like most people, you absorbed that tension, that chaos, that uncomfortable energy. Within minutes, maybe seconds, you were no longer operating from your own regulated baseline. You were resonating with the dysregulation around you. This is not a personal failing. It's a feature of your nervous system that evolved to help you survive in social groups. Humans are intensely social creatures, and our nervous systems are designed to attune to others. This capacity for emotional resonance, sometimes called emotional contagion, allows us to connect, empathize, and coordinate with others. But without boundaries, this same capacity becomes a liability. You become an emotional sponge, soaking up everyone else's anxiety, anger, excitement, or depression. You lose access to your own internal compass. You leave interactions feeling drained, confused about what you actually feel versus what you picked up from others. This chapter will teach you how to maintain your grounding while staying socially aware and engaged. You'll learn to recognize group energy without being controlled by it, to stay neutral in chaotic environments, and to protect your inner world while remaining genuinely connected to others. This is not about building walls or becoming emotionally distant. It's about developing the capacity to be both open and boundaried, a combination that creates true resilience. Understanding group energy. Every room you enter has an emotional atmosphere. Sometimes it's obvious. A funeral feels different from a celebration, but often it's subtle, a meeting where no one wants to be there, a dinner party where unspoken tension simmers beneath polite conversation, a networking event where everyone is performing confidence they don't actually feel. You pick up on these atmospheres through multiple channels, most of them operating below conscious awareness. The biological basis of emotional contagion, your brain contains specialized neurons called mirror neurons that fire both when you perform an action and when you observe someone else performing that action. When you see someone smile, your mirror neurons activate the same patterns as if you were smiling. When you see someone wince in pain, your brain simulates that pain. This system extends to emotions. When you're in the presence of someone who's anxious, your nervous system begins to mirror their anxiety. When you're around someone who's calm, you naturally tend toward calm yourself. This happens through multiple mechanisms, micro-expressions, and body language. You unconsciously register tiny facial movements, posture shifts, and gesture patterns that signal emotional states in others. Vocal tone and rhythm, the prosody of speech, pitch, pace, volume, rhythm, carries enormous emotional information that your brain processes automatically. Biochemical signaling. Humans release pheromones and other chemical signals when stressed, anxious, or relaxed. While the science here is still developing, there's evidence that you can literally smell emotional states in others. Nervous system synchronization. When people interact, their nervous systems tend to synchronize. Heart rates, breathing patterns, and even brainwave activity begin to align. This is why sitting next to someone who's breathing rapidly and shallowly makes you unconsciously shift your own breathing pattern. All of this happens automatically, without conscious thought. By the time you're aware that you're feeling anxious in a room, your nervous system has already been resonating with the anxiety around you for several minutes. The collective nervous system groups develop their own emergent emotional states that are more than just the sum of individual emotions. This is what people mean when they talk about the vibe or the energy of a space. A room full of people can collectively be tense and guarded open and curious competitive, and evaluative warm and welcoming chaotic and scattered focused and purposeful. These collective states are self-reinforcing. When everyone in a room is slightly anxious, that anxiety amplifies through emotional contagion, making everyone more anxious, which amplifies it further. Similarly, when one or two people in a room are genuinely calm and grounded, that calm can spread and shift the entire atmosphere. This means you're not just navigating individual emotional states, you're navigating a complex system where everyone is influencing everyone. Reading energy accurately. First step to not absorbing a room's energy is learning to read it accurately. Most people don't consciously notice group energy until it's already affected them. They walk into tension and feel tense without recognizing where that tension is coming from. They absorb anxiety and assume it's their own anxiety, developing the skill of reading. Energy means cultivating conscious awareness of what's happening around you before it colonizes your internal experience. When you enter any space, pause for a moment, even just 3 seconds, and ask yourself, what's the emotional temperature of this room? Notice the pace of interaction. Are people speaking quickly or slowly? Are movements rushed or relaxed? The quality of attention. Are people engaged with each other or distracted? Is there eye contact or avoidance? The physical arrangement. How are people positioned? Clusters or scattered? Facing each other or turned away? The vocal tone. What's the pitch, volume, and rhythm of conversation? Tight and high or loose and low? The silence quality. When there's quiet, does it feel comfortable or awkward? Your body's initial response. What sensations arise in you immediately upon entering? Tightness? Relaxation? Activation? This quick scan gives you information. The room is tense. The room is welcoming. The room is chaotic. The room is subdued. Knowing this is power, because now you can choose how to respond rather than unconsciously absorbing whatever you find. Emotional boundaries. Where you end and others begin. The concept of emotional boundaries is one of the most important and least understood aspects of maintaining calm in social situations. A boundary is not a wall. It's not about shutting people out or becoming cold and detached. A healthy emotional boundary is more like a semi-permeable membrane. It allows connection and exchange while maintaining distinction between your internal experience and others' internal experiences. The problem of porous boundaries. People who struggle most with staying calm in groups often have extremely porous emotional boundaries. They've learned, usually in childhood, to be exquisitely attuned to others' emotional states, often as a survival mechanism. Maybe you grew up with a parent whose moods were unpredictable and you learned to constantly scan for signs of anger or disappointment. Maybe you were the peacemaker in your family, absorbing tension and trying to smooth it over. Maybe you learned that your value came from making others comfortable, which required you to be hyper-aware of their feelings. These are adaptive strategies that helped you navigate difficult situations. But they come at a cost. You never developed a strong sense of where your emotions end and others begin. With porous boundaries, you feel responsible for others' emotional states, absorb anxiety, anger, or sadness from people around you, have difficulty identifying what you actually feel versus what you've picked up from others, leave social interactions, feeling drained or confused, struggle to maintain your own opinions or preferences when they differ from the group, feel anxious when others are disappointed or upset, even when their feelings have nothing to do with you. The anatomy of a healthy boundary. Healthy emotional boundary allows you to notice and care about others' feelings without taking responsibility for causing or fixing them. Maintain your own emotional state even when others are dysregulated. Feel empathy without merging with others' experiences. Know without guilt, have different opinions, feelings, or needs than those around you. Leave interactions with your energy largely intact. Here's the key distinction. Boundaries are not about what others do. They're about what you do. You cannot control whether someone gets angry, disappointed, anxious, or upset. But you can control whether you absorb those states as your own. A person with strong boundaries might think, I notice that person is angry. That's difficult for them. I hope they find a way to work through it. And also, their anger is not mine to carry. A person with weak boundaries thinks, that person is angry. I must have done something wrong. I need to fix this. I can't be okay until they're okay. See the difference? Building boundary. Awareness. The practice of building boundaries starts with awareness, specifically noticing when you've lost track of where you end and someone else begins. Throughout your day-to-day, practice asking yourself, what am I feeling right now? Is this actually my emotion, or did I pick it up from someone else? Often you'll discover that the anxiety you're feeling isn't actually yours. It's what you absorbed from your stressed colleague. The heaviness you're carrying isn't your depression. It's the sadness you picked up from a conversation earlier. This doesn't mean those feelings aren't real, or that you shouldn't care about others. It means you're learning to distinguish between empathy, feeling with, and enmeshment, becoming unable to separate your experience from theirs. Try this practice. After any interaction where you felt emotionally affected, take 2 minutes alone and ask, what emotions am I carrying right now? List them mentally or on paper, then ask, which of these are actually mine? Which did I absorb from the other person? For the ones you absorbed, visualize handing them back. Literally imagine taking those feelings and giving them back to the person they belong to with compassion. This is yours, not mine. I care about you, and I'm not carrying this for you. This might feel strange at first, even selfish. It's not. You cannot actually carry emotions for other people. You can only create the illusion that you are, while harming your own well-being in the process. The energy field practice. Remember the visualization from Chapter 3, where you imagined a field of calm around you. Let's develop that further. Before entering any space, take a moment to establish your energetic boundary. Close your eyes or soften your gaze. Take 3 deep breaths. On each inhale, imagine you're breathing in your own center, your own calm, your own groundedness. On each exhale, imagine you're creating a clear boundary around yourself, not a wall, but a field. This field extends about 2 to 3 feet from your body in all directions. Tell yourself, I can be affected by others without absorbing their state. I can care deeply without losing myself. I can stay open and boundaried at the same time. Feel this field around you. It's strong but flexible. Energy can pass through it, connection, warmth, empathy, but you remain distinct. You remain yourself. As you enter the space, maintain awareness of this field. When you notice yourself starting to absorb someone's anxiety or tension, consciously strengthen your boundary. Breathe into it. Feel yourself contained within your own energy. This is not selfish or cold. It's self-preserving, and ironically, it makes you more capable of genuine connection, because you're not desperately trying to manage others' emotions to keep yourself regulated. Staying neutral in chaotic environments, chaos is contagious. When you enter an environment where energy is scattered, anxiety is high, or multiple people are dysregulated, the pull to join that chaos is enormous. Your nervous system reads the chaos and thinks everyone else is activated. There must be danger. I should activate too, but you don't have to. You can be the calm center in the storm. The concept of regulated neutrality doesn't mean you don't care or that you're emotionally flat. It means you're not swept up in reactivity. Think of yourself as a thermostat rather than a thermometer. A thermometer simply reflects the temperature around it. When the room is hot, the thermometer reads hot. A thermostat maintains a set temperature regardless of external conditions. When the room gets too hot, it activates cooling. When it gets too cold, it activates heating. People with poor boundaries are thermometers. Whatever emotional temperature surrounds them becomes their temperature. People with strong boundaries are thermostats. They have a set point, they're grounded, regulated baseline, and they maintain it even when the environment tries to pull them away. The eye of the hurricane technique. Hurricanes have eyes, calm centers surrounded by violent storm activity. You can be that eye. When you're in a chaotic environment, anchor into your body. Feel your feet on the ground. Notice your breath. Come back to physical sensation. Slow everything down. Move more slowly than the pace around you. Speak more slowly. Breathe more slowly. Your nervous system will follow your body's lead. Create internal space. Imagine that the chaos is happening around you, but not to you. You're observing it, even participating in it, but you're not consumed by it. Return to your intention. Remember why you're here and how you wanted to show up. That intention is your North Star when chaos tries to spin you around. Use your breath as an anchor. Every few minutes, take one conscious breath, a deep inhale, a long exhale. This repeatedly signals to your nervous system, we're safe. We're grounded. We're okay. Managing emotional escalation sometimes. You're not just in a chaotic environment, you're in an environment where someone is actively dysregulated and their energy is directed at you or demanding your response. Maybe someone is angry and raising their voice. Maybe someone is spiraling into anxiety and looking to you for reassurance. Maybe someone is creating drama and pulling you into it. In these moments, the most powerful thing you can do is refuse to match their escalation. This is called remaining underreactive in the face of overreaction. When someone raises their voice, you lower yours. When someone speaks quickly in panic, you speak slowly and steadily. When someone's energy is chaotic, yours becomes more grounded. This doesn't mean you're dismissing their experience or being condescending. It means you're not allowing their dysregulation to dysregulate you. In fact, by maintaining your regulation, you're offering them something to attune to, a calmer frequency they can potentially match. Here's what this looks like in practice. Escalated person. This is a disaster. Everything is going wrong. We're not going to make the deadline. What are we going to do? Regulated response, speaking slowly and calmly. I hear that you're really stressed about the timeline. Let's take a minute to look at what actually needs to happen. What's the most pressing issue right now? You've acknowledged their emotion without joining it. You've introduced structure and calm without dismissing their concern. This takes practice. Your natural instinct when someone escalates is to either escalate with them, fight, shut down, freeze, or desperately try to make them feel better, fawn. All of these are nervous system reactions, not conscious choices. The practice is noticing the pull to match their escalation and choosing differently. The pause before response. In chaotic environments, people react quickly, finishing each other's sentences, interrupting, speaking over each other, jumping from topic to topic. One of the most powerful ways to stay grounded is to simply pause before you speak. Even a 1-second pause creates space. It signals to your nervous system, we're not in emergency mode. We have time to think. It also often shifts the energy in the room. When everyone is rapid firing and you pause, your pause creates a brief moment of stillness that others can feel. Practice this. Before responding to anything in a chaotic conversation, take one breath. Just one, inhale, exhale, then speak. This tiny practice creates enormous shifts over time. Protecting your inner world, your thoughts, feelings, values, and sense of self is the most valuable thing you possess. Protecting it doesn't mean hiding it or becoming closed off. It means not allowing external chaos, judgment, or pressure to colonize it. Selective permeability. Choosing what to let. Imagine your attention is like a filter. Some things need to pass through, information relevant to your goals, feedback that helps you grow, genuine connection with others. Some things should be filtered out. Projections from others' insecurities, social pressure to be someone you're not, anxiety that doesn't belong to you. Most people don't consciously choose what they let in. They absorb everything indiscriminately, then wonder why they feel overwhelmed. Developing selective permeability means consciously deciding what deserves your attention and what doesn't. When someone makes a critical comment, you can ask, is there useful information here? Is this feedback I need to consider? Or is this more about their internal state than about me? If it's the former, let it in and work with it. If it's the latter, acknowledge it without absorbing it. That's an interesting perspective. I'll consider it. And then, you don't have to carry it. When you're in a conversation where someone is venting, you can listen with genuine care while maintaining a distinction. This is their experience to have. I can be present for it without taking it on. The practice of non-defensive presence, one of the biggest drains on your energy in social situations, is defensiveness. When you feel you have to constantly protect yourself, justify yourself, or prove yourself, you're in a state of continuous activation. Non-defensive presence means you can hear criticism, disagreement, or challenge without immediately moving into protection mode. This doesn't mean you never defend yourself or set boundaries. It means your first response isn't automatic defense. When someone disagrees with you, instead of immediately arguing back, you can say, tell me more about why you see it that way. When someone criticizes you, instead of explaining why they're wrong, you can say, I appreciate you sharing that. Let me think about it. You're not agreeing. You're not submitting. You're simply not treating every challenge as a threat that requires immediate, defensive response. This creates remarkable calm, because most of the activation people feel in social situations comes from perceived attacks that they feel compelled to defend against. When you're no longer in constant defense mode, you free up enormous mental and emotional energy. Creating mental compartments another. powerful practice for protecting your inner world is creating mental compartments, the ability to be fully present in one context without carrying unresolved emotions from another. Context: you had a difficult morning at home. Now you're at work. Can you be fully present at work? Or are you still processing the morning? You received critical feedback in a meeting. Now you're having lunch with colleagues. Can you be present with them, or are you replaying the feedback on loop? Mental compartmentalization isn't about suppression. It's about conscious timing. It's saying, I'll process that difficult emotion later when I have time and space. Right now, I'm choosing to be fully here. Here's the practice. When you're moving from one context to another, home to work, one meeting to the next, a difficult conversation to a social gathering, take 60 seconds for a transition ritual. Close your eyes if possible. Take 3 deep breaths. Say to yourself, I'm closing the door on previous context. I'm opening the door to new context. I can return to unfinished emotional business later. Right now I'm fully here. Visualize literally closing. A door behind you and opening, a new one in front of you. This simple ritual helps your brain shift contexts rather than bleeding emotional activation from one situation into every subsequent situation. The practice of solitude, finally. Protecting your inner world requires regular time in solitude. Time away from the constant input, demands, and emotional resonance of being around others. If you're constantly around people with no time alone, you never have a chance to distinguish what's yours from what you've absorbed. You never fully discharge the activation of social engagement. You never reconnect with your own center. This is why people who are around others all day often feel depleted. Not because connection is inherently draining, but because they never get time to return to themselves. Make solitude non-negotiable. Even 15-20 minutes a day of being completely alone, with no input, no phone, no music, no podcast, no conversation, allows your nervous system to recalibrate. In solitude, you can ask, what am I actually feeling? What do I actually think? What do I actually need? These questions are difficult to answer when you're constantly attuning to others. Solitude creates the space for self-awareness to emerge. The paradox: boundaries create connection. Here's something that seems counterintuitive, but is absolutely true. The better your boundaries, the more genuine connection you can create. When you have weak boundaries, you're so busy managing your nervous system's response to others that you can't actually be present with them. You're either absorbed in their experience, losing yourself, or defending against their experience, shutting them out. When you have strong boundaries, you can be genuinely open because you're not afraid of being overwhelmed. You can listen deeply because you're not frantically trying to manage your own anxiety. You can be vulnerable because you trust yourself to maintain your center even if the interaction doesn't go perfectly. Boundaries don't create distance, they create sustainable proximity. Think about it. Who are you more comfortable being around? Someone who absorbs all your anxiety and becomes anxious themselves, which makes you have to manage both your anxiety and theirs. Or someone who can be with you in your anxiety, acknowledge it, care about it, but not become consumed by it. The second person feels safe. You can be yourself around them without worrying about destabilizing them. That's the gift of boundaries. When you master the art of reading the room without absorbing the room, you become that person for others. You become someone people gravitate toward because your presence is both engaged and stable. You're interested but not intrusive, present but not enmeshed, caring but not codependent, open but not porous. This is the foundation of genuine calm in social situations, not removing yourself from the emotional reality of the space, but learning to be in it without being consumed by it. In the next chapter, we'll build on this foundation by exploring how to actively create calm presence in your social interactions, becoming not just someone who maintains their own regulation, but someone who can shift the energy of entire rooms through the quality of their presence. Chapter 5. Social situations and calm presence. You've learned to ground yourself before entering spaces. You've developed the capacity to read emotional currents without being swept away by them. Now we arrive at the most practical question. How do you actually show up in social interactions in a way that communicates calm, creates connection, and makes you genuinely magnetic. This chapter is about active presence, not just maintaining your own regulation, but using that regulation to positively influence every interaction you have. How calmness makes you more likable. There's a misconception that being likable requires being entertaining, impressive, or constantly positive. In reality, the quality that makes someone genuinely likable is much simpler. They make others feel comfortable. When you're calm, you create comfort automatically. Your regulated nervous system signals to others' nervous systems that there's no threat present. Remember emotional contagion? It works both ways. When you're genuinely calm, others begin to regulate in your presence without knowing why. Anxious people unconsciously pressure others to manage their anxiety. They need constant reassurance, validation, or entertainment. And calm people don't create this burden. Others can relax because they're not responsible for maintaining your emotional state. When you're not managing internal chaos, you can actually pay attention to others. You listen without planning your next sentence. You notice details. You remember what people say. This quality of attention is so rare that when people experience it, they find you compelling. The practice here is counterintuitive. Stop trying to be likable. Focus instead on being regulated and present. Likability emerges as a natural byproduct. De-escalating tension, one of the most valuable social skills you can develop, is the capacity to lower the temperature in tense situations. Tension escalates through mutual reinforcement. Person A is defensive, which triggers person B to become defensive, which intensifies person A's defensiveness, and within moments, everyone is operating from their most reactive selves. You can interrupt this cycle simply by refusing to escalate. The underreaction principle. When someone raises their voice, you lower yours. When someone speaks quickly, you slow down. When someone's body language becomes tight and aggressive, yours becomes more open and relaxed. Strategic validation. Before disagreeing or problem-solving, validate the emotional experience. I can see this is really frustrating for you, acknowledges their reality without requiring you to agree with their interpretation. The power of the pause. In tense exchanges, silence feels uncomfortable. You can break this pattern by intentionally pausing before responding. Count to 3 internally, breathe, then speak. Your pause interrupts the rapid-fire escalation and creates space for more thoughtful response. Being the anchor in conversations, an anchor is a fixed point that provides stability. You become an anchor not through dominance or control, but through consistent, calm presence. Holding steady in silence. Most people panic in conversational pauses and rush to fill them. Anchored people can tolerate silence. They trust that quiet moments are part of natural conversational rhythm. Practice this. In your next conversation, when there's a pause, count to 5 before speaking. Notice the urge to fill the space immediately. Don't act on it. Asking grounding questions. Instead of asking surface questions, ask questions that invite people to connect with something real. What's been on your mind lately? What are you excited about right now? Reflecting rather than redirecting. When someone shares something meaningful, reflect back. It sounds like that was really significant for you. This keeps the conversation grounded in their experience. Communicating. With a composed tone. Your words matter, but your tone matters more. The same sentence delivered with different tones creates entirely different experiences. Speak from your diaphragm. Before speaking, take a breath deep into your belly. Speak on the exhale. Your voice will naturally be lower and more resonant. Slow your pace by 20%. Most people speak faster when nervous. Consciously slow down. Lower your volume slightly. Speaking slightly more quietly draws people in and signals confidence. Use downward inflection at sentence ends. This communicates certainty without aggression. Practice these elements individually, then combine them. Over time, composed vocal tone becomes automatic. The integration, calm presence in social situations is the integration of self-awareness, emotional boundaries, nervous system regulation, and conscious choice in how you show up. When you walk into a room grounded, Maintain your boundaries while staying engaged. De-escalate rather than escalate, and communicate with composed tone. Something remarkable happens. You become the kind of person others want to be around because your regulated presence feels like permission for them to regulate too. Chapter 6. Overcoming Anxiety. Triggers: you can master breathing techniques, develop strong boundaries, and practice grounding rituals. But then you walk into a room, and someone asks you a direct question in front of everyone, and suddenly all your preparation vanishes. Your heart races. Your mind goes blank. Your carefully cultivated calm disappears in an instant. This is the reality of anxiety triggers. They bypass your conscious mind and activate your nervous system directly. Understanding and working with these triggers is essential for maintaining calm in real-world situations. Common triggers in social environments. Anxiety triggers are highly individual, but certain situations reliably activate stress responses in most people. Being the center of attention. All eyes on you during presentations, when entering a room late, or when someone calls you out in a group setting, evaluation and judgment. Job interviews, performance reviews, meeting new people who might form opinions about you. Uncertainty, not knowing what to say, where to stand, or what's expected of you in unfamiliar social contexts, conflict or confrontation, disagreements, criticism, or tense conversations where emotions run high. Social comparison, being around people you perceive as more confident, successful, or socially skilled than you. Silence and pauses, gaps in conversation that feel uncomfortable, making you feel responsible for filling them. Performance pressure, situations where you're expected to be funny, interesting, or impressive on demand. The first step in overcoming triggers is identifying your specific ones. Take time to reflect. Which situations consistently spike your anxiety? Write them down. Awareness transforms vague dread into specific challenges you can work with. How to neutralize triggers? Once you've identified your triggers, you can systematically reduce their power over you. Cognitive reframing. Your interpretation of a trigger determines its intensity. If you interpret being asked a question as, "Everyone is judging whether I'm smart enough," your anxiety will spike. If you interpret it as, "Someone is curious about my perspective," the same situation feels manageable. Practice reframing your common triggers. Instead of, "I'm being evaluated," think, "I'm being given an opportunity to contribute." Instead of, "Everyone will notice if I mess up," think, "Most people are focused on themselves, not scrutinizing me." The exposure principle: triggers maintain their power through avoidance. Every time you avoid a triggering situation, you reinforce the belief that it's dangerous. Your nervous system learns, "We can't handle this." Gradual exposure teaches your nervous system the opposite. "We can handle this. We've done it before and survived." Create an exposure hierarchy. List situations that trigger you from least to most anxiety-producing. Start with the easiest one. Deliberately enter that situation while practicing your grounding techniques. Once it no longer triggers significant anxiety, move to the next level. This isn't about forcing yourself into situations that genuinely harm you. It's about systematically teaching your nervous system that most social situations aren't actually dangerous. Somatic release. Triggers create physical activation that gets stuck in your body. After triggering situations, practice releasing this stored tension through movement. Shake your body, go for a walk, do jumping jacks, or practice progressive muscle relaxation. This prevents accumulation. If you experience a trigger but never release the physical activation, it layers upon previous activations, making you increasingly sensitized. Building tolerance through exposure. Exposure works, but only when done correctly. Throwing yourself into overwhelming situations without preparation typically backfires, creating traumatic experiences that increase sensitivity rather than building tolerance. The Goldilocks principle: choose challenges that are uncomfortable but not overwhelming. If your anxiety is at a 7 or above, you're in survival mode and not learning. Aim for situations that bring you to a 4 to 6, enough activation to stretch your capacity without flooding your system. Pair exposure with regulation. Never expose yourself to triggers without also practicing your calming techniques. Enter the triggering situation grounded. Use breath control during it. Reflect afterward on what you learned. Celebrate small wins. After each exposure, acknowledge what you did. I stayed in the conversation even though I felt anxious. I asked a question even though my heart was racing. These acknowledgements rewire your brain to associate triggering situations with competence rather than failure. Replacing fear with curiosity. The most powerful reframe you can make is shifting from fear to curiosity. Fear asks, what will go wrong? How will I be hurt? What will people think? Curiosity asks, what will I discover? How will this unfold? What can I learn? When you approach triggering situations with curiosity, you're operating from your prefrontal cortex, thinking brain, rather than your amygdala, fear brain. This shift alone reduces anxiety significantly. Practice this internal dialogue shift. When you notice fear-based thoughts, pause and ask, what would curiosity ask right now? Instead of, what if I embarrass myself? Try, I wonder how this conversation will develop. Instead of, they probably think I'm boring, try, I'm curious what they're actually thinking about. Curiosity is incompatible with threat detection. When you're genuinely curious, your nervous system cannot simultaneously be in full fight or flight mode. The long game overcoming triggers isn't about eliminating anxiety entirely. It's about changing your relationship with it. You learn to feel anxiety without being controlled by it. You develop confidence not because situations stop triggering you, but because you've proven to yourself repeatedly that you can handle being triggered. This is resilience, not the absence of difficulty, but the capacity to remain grounded within it. In the next chapter, we'll explore the body language and physical presence that naturally communicate calm, even when you're still working through internal activation. Chapter 7. Calm body language. Your body tells a story before you say a single word. Within 3 seconds of seeing you, people form impressions about your confidence, your emotional state, and your level of comfort. These impressions aren't based on what you say, they're based entirely on how you carry yourself. Here's what makes this powerful. You can consciously shape the story your body tells. And even more remarkably, when you change your body language, you don't just change how others perceive you. You change how you feel internally. Your mind follows your body's lead. This chapter explores the specific physical behaviors that communicate calm and how to embody them until they become automatic. The mind-body loop. Most people think the relationship between internal state and external expression is one-directional. I feel anxious, therefore my body becomes tense. But the relationship is actually bidirectional, a loop. When you're anxious, your body tenses. But equally true, when your body is tense, your brain interprets this as evidence that you should be anxious. Your posture, your breathing, your movement patterns. All of these send signals back to your brain about what emotional state you're in. This is called proprioceptive feedback, and you can use it deliberately. When you adopt the physical posture of a calm person, your nervous system begins to shift toward calm, even if you didn't start there. This isn't fake it till you make it in the traditional sense. It's understanding that your body is not separate from your emotions. It's part of the system that creates them. Slow movements. Speed communicates urgency. When you move quickly, fidgeting, gesturing rapidly, shifting position frequently, you signal to yourself and others that something requires immediate attention, that there's a threat present. Calm people move slowly, not lethargically but deliberately. Each movement is intentional rather than reactive. Practice this. For the next week, consciously slow down every physical movement by about 20%. When you reach for something, reach slowly. When you turn your head to look at someone, turn slowly. When you walk into a room, walk slowly. This will feel unnatural at first. You'll worry you look strange or that people are waiting on you. They're not. What you perceive as too slow is usually just normal pace to observers. Your anxiety has trained you to move in fast-forward, specific applications. When someone asks you a question, pause before responding. Take a breath, then speak. This pause alone, before words even leave your mouth, communicates composure. When you sit down, do it slowly rather than dropping into the chair. When you stand, rise smoothly rather than jerking upward. When you gesture while speaking, make your hand movements fluid and controlled rather than sharp and quick. Each slow movement is a message to your nervous system. There's no emergency here. We have time. We're safe. Relaxed, posture anxiety creates characteristic postural patterns. Shoulders hunched forward, chest collapsed, head jutting forward, arms held close to the body in a protective stance. Calm posture opens the body and creates space. The foundation, grounded feet, whether standing or sitting, feel both feet flat on the ground. Distribute your weight evenly. This literal grounding creates psychological grounding. When your foundation is stable, your entire body can relax above it. Shoulders back and down. Most people carry tension in their shoulders, pulling them up toward their ears. Practice this several times daily. Roll your shoulders up toward your ears, then back and down. Let them settle in their natural, relaxed position. Feel the openness this creates in your chest. Lengthened spine. Imagine a string attached to the crown of your head, gently pulling you upward. This creates length in your spine without rigidity. You're upright but not stiff, tall but not tense. Open chest anxiety collapses the chest inward, as if protecting your heart. Calm opens the chest. This doesn't mean puffing out your chest artificially. It means allowing your ribcage to expand naturally. Take a deep breath and notice how your chest opens. Maintain that openness even after you exhale. Relaxed hands. Check your hands right now. Are they clenched? Are your fingers tense? Calm people have relaxed hands. Let your fingers hang naturally, slightly curved. Rest your hands in your lap or at your sides without gripping or clenching. The posture check-in set reminders on your phone 3 times daily. When the reminder goes off, scan your posture. Feet grounded, shoulders relaxed, chest open, hands soft. Make adjustments. Over time, relaxed posture becomes your default rather than something you have to remember. Eye contact without intensity. Eye contact is one of the most powerful nonverbal behaviors, but most people get it wrong in one of 2 ways. They avoid it entirely, communicating insecurity, or they hold it too intensely, communicating aggression or desperation. Calm eye contact is steady but soft. You're present with the other person without staring them down. The 50-70 rule: in conversations, maintain eye contact about 50% of the time while speaking and 70% while listening. This creates engagement without intensity. The triangle technique. Instead of staring directly into someone's eyes without breaking, allow your gaze to move gently in a triangle. Left eye, right eye, mouth. This keeps you engaged with their face while feeling less intense for both of you. Blink naturally. When people are anxious, they either blink too much or hold their eyes too wide and blink too little. Both signal discomfort. Notice your natural blink rate when you're relaxed and allow that rhythm even in stressful situations. Look away purposefully. When you break eye contact, do it smoothly rather than darting your eyes away suddenly. Then turn your head slightly or look down briefly, then return. Sudden eye movements signal anxiety. Practice in low-stakes situations. Build comfort with eye contact by practicing with cashiers, servers, or in brief everyday interactions. These low-pressure moments let you develop the skill before applying it in high-stakes situations. How calm people physically carry themselves beyond specific behaviors. Calm people have an overall quality to their physical presence that's hard to articulate but immediately recognizable. Grounded weight. They seem heavy in a good way, settled, rooted. Their energy moves downward into the earth rather than floating upward in their head. You can cultivate this by consciously feeling your weight. Notice gravity pulling you down. Let yourself be heavy. Economical movement. They don't make unnecessary movements. No fidgeting, no adjusting clothing repeatedly, no touching their face or hair constantly. Each movement serves a purpose. Fluid transitions. They move from one position to another smoothly. No jerky adjustments, no sudden shifts. Everything flows. Comfortable stillness. Perhaps most distinctively, calm people can be completely still without it looking awkward. They don't need to constantly shift, adjust, or move. Their stillness communicates, I'm comfortable in my body, right here, right now. Practice stillness. Sit or stand completely still for 60 seconds. Notice every urge to move, adjust, or fidget. Don't act on these urges immediately, just notice them. This builds awareness of your movement patterns and creates choice about which movements are actually necessary. Integration, your physical presence. Practice changing body language isn't about memorizing rules and following them rigidly. It's about developing a felt sense of what calm presence feels like in your body, then returning to that felt sense repeatedly until it becomes natural. Here's a simple daily practice. Morning, 2 minutes. Stand with feet grounded, shoulders relaxed, chest open. Take 5 slow breaths. Feel what calm presence feels like physically. This is your baseline. Throughout the day, set 3 random alarms. When they go off, check. Am I moving too quickly? Is my posture collapsed? Are my shoulders tense? Return to your baseline. Before challenging situations, do a 30-second body check. Ground your feet, relax your shoulders, open your chest, soften your hands. Enter from this physical state. After challenging situations, notice what happened to your body during the interaction. Did you collapse? Speed up, tense? No judgment, just awareness. This builds the feedback loop. Over weeks and months, calm body language becomes your default. You no longer have to think about it. Your body simply carries itself differently, and when your body is calm, your mind follows. Chapter 8. Handling Pressure with Ease. The true test of calm isn't how you show up on easy days. It's how you perform when stakes are high, time is short, and everyone is watching. This chapter is about maintaining your center in the moments that matter most. Meetings, confrontations, unexpected challenges, and high-pressure situations where your response actually has consequences. The nature of pressure is the intersection of importance and urgency. When something matters and you have limited time to handle it, your nervous system interprets this as threat. Your amygdala activates, stress hormones flood your system, and your prefrontal cortex, the part that handles complex thinking, begins to go offline. This is why intelligent, capable people sometimes fumble in high-pressure moments. It's not a character flaw. It's biology. But here's what changes everything. Pressure is not the problem. Your interpretation of pressure is the problem. 2 people face the same high-stakes presentation. One interprets it as, everything depends on this. If I fail, I'm finished. The other interprets it as, this matters, and I'm prepared to handle it. Same objective pressure. Completely different internal experience. The first person will struggle because their nervous system is in survival mode. The second will perform well because they're activated but not overwhelmed in what psychologists call the optimal arousal zone, learning. To handle pressure means learning to stay in that zone, where you're alert and engaged without tipping into panic. Staying calm while thinking fast, high pressure. Situations often require rapid decision-making. Someone asks you a difficult question in a meeting. A client raises an unexpected objection. A conflict erupts, and everyone looks to you to respond. Your instinct is to answer immediately. Silence feels dangerous. But immediate responses are usually reactive, not thoughtful. The power of strategic pause. Even in fast-moving situations, you have 3 seconds. Use them. Take a breath. Let the question fully land. Then respond. 3 seconds feels like an eternity when you're anxious. It's not. To observers, it looks like thoughtful consideration. And internally, it gives your prefrontal cortex time to engage, rather than letting your amygdala run the show. Buying time without looking weak. If you need more than 3 seconds, you can buy time gracefully. That's a great question. Let me think about that for a moment. I want to give you a thoughtful answer. Give me just a second. Let me make sure I understand what you're asking. These phrases give you 10 to 20 seconds to collect yourself while signaling competence, not confusion. Simplify under pressure. When your nervous system is activated, your working memory shrinks. Don't try to formulate complex, perfect responses. Focus on one clear point at a time instead of, well, there are several factors to consider here, including A, B, C, and D, and they all interact in complex ways. Say, the most important factor is X. Let me explain why. Simplicity under pressure looks like clarity, not stupidity, emotional detachment from outcomes. One of the biggest sources of pressure is over-attachment to specific outcomes. When you need something to go a particular way, every moment that threatens that outcome spikes your anxiety. I need this presentation to go perfectly. I need them to like me. I need to win this argument. I need to avoid all mistakes. These needs create enormous internal pressure because you're trying to control things you can't fully control. The shift to process orientation. Instead of attaching to outcomes, attach to process, how you want to show up regardless of what happens. I'm going to present my ideas clearly and calmly, and whatever response I get, I'll handle. I'm going to be genuine, and whether they like me is up to them. I'm going to listen and speak my truth, and the outcome will be what it is. This isn't resignation, it's recognizing where your actual control lies. You control your preparation, your presence, and your response. You don't control others' reactions or final outcomes. When you release attachment to outcomes, pressure decreases dramatically because you're no longer trying to force reality to match your preferences. The 10-10-10 rule. When facing pressure, ask yourself, will this matter in 10 minutes? 10 months? 10 years? Often the answer is no to all three. This perspective loosens the grip of immediate pressure. You're not dismissing importance, you're right-sizing it. Becoming reliable under pressure. Organizations and relationships are built on reliability, knowing that someone will show up well when it matters. People who handle pressure with calm become disproportionately valuable because they're trusted with the most important, difficult things. Consistency over perfection. Reliability isn't about being flawless, it's about being steady. The person who performs at 80% consistently under pressure is more valuable than the person who sometimes hits 100% but often collapses to 40%. Focus on maintaining your baseline rather than achieving peaks. Ground yourself, breathe, stay present. This consistent 80% builds trust. Pressure as practice. Reframe every high-pressure situation as an opportunity to practice staying regulated. This removes the binary of success, failure, and replaces it with learning. Did I stay calm? Is a more useful question than, did I get the outcome I wanted? When you view pressure as practice, each situation, regardless of outcome, builds your capacity. Post-pressure reflection. After any high-pressure situation, take 5 minutes to reflect. What was my emotional temperature? When did I lose regulation? When did I maintain it? What helped? What would I do differently next time? This reflection transforms experience into wisdom. Without it, you repeat the same patterns. With it, you evolve. The calm advantage. Here's the paradox. The less pressure you put on yourself to handle pressure perfectly, the better you handle it. When you trust your preparation, detach from outcomes, and focus on staying present, pressure loses its power over you. You enter high-stakes situations grounded rather than grasping, responsive rather than reactive. This is the ultimate expression of calm, not the absence of challenge, but the capacity to remain yourself within it. Chapter 9. Daily Habits That Build Lifelong Calm. Everything you've learned so far. Grounding techniques. Emotional boundaries, body language, pressure management, works in the moment. But sustainable calm isn't built in moments. It's built in the accumulated effect of daily practices that gradually rewire your nervous system and reshape your default state. This chapter is about the habits that transform calm from something you do into something you are. Think of your nervous system like a garden. You can pull weeds, manage acute anxiety whenever they appear, or you can tend the soil, build daily practices, so fewer weeds grow in the first place. Both matter, but the latter creates lasting change. Morning grounding routine. How you start your day sets your nervous system's baseline for the hours that follow. Most people begin their day in reactive mode. Alarm blares, they check their phone immediately, scroll through emails or news, and rush into obligations. They've activated their stress response before they even leave bed. A grounding morning routine creates a different foundation. The first 5 minutes, before reaching for your phone, before thinking about your to-do list, Spend 5 minutes establishing your center. Sit up in bed or move to a quiet space. Place both feet flat on the floor. Take 5 deep breaths, slow inhale through your nose, longer exhale through your mouth. Feel your body. Notice your emotional temperature without trying to change it. This simple practice signals to your nervous system. We're beginning from a place of presence, not panic. Movement before stimulation, before consuming any information, news, messages, social media. Move your body for at least 10 minutes. This doesn't require a full workout. Walk around your home, do gentle stretching, practice yoga, or simply stand and do arm circles and body twists. Movement processes residual stress from sleep, increases oxygen flow, and tells your body you're safe enough to be in your body rather than stuck in your head. Intentional fueling. What you consume in the first hour shapes your physiology for hours. Protein and healthy fats stabilize blood sugar and support steady energy. Excessive caffeine on an empty stomach spikes cortisol. Sugar creates crashes that feel like anxiety. Eat something grounding. Drink water before coffee. Give your body the message that resources are abundant, not scarce. Set your daily intention before entering your day's demands. Ask yourself, how do I want to show up today? Not what you want to accomplish, how you want to be. Calm and present, patient and curious. Grounded regardless of what happens. Speak this intention aloud or write it down. Return to it throughout the day when you notice yourself losing center. Micro-mindfulness. Throughout the day, you don't need hour-long meditation sessions to build calm. Micro-moments of mindfulness, brief returns to presence scattered throughout your day, accumulate into significant nervous system regulation. The breath check-in, 30 seconds, every 2 hours. Set reminders. When they go off, stop whatever you're doing. Place one hand on your chest, one on your belly. Take 3 conscious breaths. Notice, am I breathing shallowly or deeply? Is my breath in my chest or my belly? Just observe, then return to your day. This practice interrupts the buildup of stress that happens when you go hours without checking in with yourself. The body scan, 60 seconds, mid-morning and mid-afternoon. Pause and scan your body from head to toes. Where are you holding tension? Jaw clenched? Shoulders raised? Hands tight? Simply noticing tension often releases some of it. Where you find tightness, breathe into it and consciously relax. The emotional temperature check throughout the day. Remember the 1-10 scale from Chapter 2? Check it regularly. Where am I right now? If you're at 6 or above, you've crossed into activation territory. This is the moment to intervene. Take 5 deep breaths, step outside for 2 minutes, do the physiological sigh. The goal isn't to always be at 1-3. It's to catch yourself at 5-6 before you reach 8-9, when regulation is much harder. Monotasking moments. Choose 3 activities each day that you'll do with full attention. Drinking your morning coffee, eating 1 meal, walking to your car, washing your hands. During these moments, be fully present. Notice sensations, colors, sounds, temperature. No phone, no mental planning. Just this moment. These micro-practices train your brain to come back to the present, rather than constantly living in future worry or past rumination. Protecting your nervous system. Your nervous system has limits. Constant stimulation, chronic stress, and insufficient recovery deplete its capacity for regulation. Protecting it means setting boundaries around inputs and ensuring adequate restoration. Digital boundaries. Your phone delivers an endless stream of activation, notifications, news cycles, social comparison, urgent messages. Each one is a small stress response. Accumulated, they keep your nervous system in perpetual low-level activation. Create phone-free zones. First hour after waking, last hour before sleep, during meals, during conversations. Turn off non-essential notifications. Check email at set times rather than constantly. This isn't about demonizing technology. It's about protecting your nervous system from chronic overstimulation. Information diet. You cannot stay calm while consuming a constant diet of outrage, crisis, and catastrophe. Yes, stay informed, but distinguish between being informed and being consumed. Limit news consumption to specific times. Curate your social media to remove accounts that consistently spike your anxiety. Choose what you let into your mental and emotional space as carefully as you choose what you eat. Sleep as non-negotiable. Every system we've discussed, emotional regulation, clear thinking, resilience under pressure, depends on adequate sleep. When you're sleep deprived, your amygdala becomes hyperactive and your prefrontal cortex weakens. You're physiologically less capable of staying calm. Prioritize 7 to 9 hours of quality sleep. Create a consistent bedtime routine. Keep your bedroom cool and dark. No screens for an hour before sleep. This isn't luxury, it's foundational nervous system maintenance. Saying no, every yes to something is a no to something else. When you say yes to obligations that drain you, you're saying no to practices that restore you. Protecting your nervous system means getting comfortable with disappointing people occasionally to preserve your capacity for regulation. Practice saying, "I appreciate the invitation, but I need to pass. That doesn't work for my schedule right now. Let me check my capacity and get back to you." No requires no justification. Protect your energy as the finite resource it is. The importance of solitude, we've discussed this briefly before, but it's worth emphasizing. Regular solitude is essential for lasting calm. When you're constantly around others, you're constantly attuning, adjusting, and managing your presentation. Even positive social interaction requires energy. Without time alone, you never fully return to your baseline. Daily solitude, 20-30 minutes minimum. Create non-negotiable alone time where you're completely unavailable. No phone, no input, no responsibilities. Sit quietly, walk alone, journal, or simply stare out a window. In this space, you're not trying to be anything for anyone. You can drop all performance. You can hear your own thoughts without external noise. You can feel your feelings without managing others' reactions. This, in daily recalibration, allows you to distinguish what's authentically yours from what you've absorbed from others. Weekly, longer solitude. Hours. Once per week, create extended solo time. A long walk in nature, a solo coffee shop visit with a book, time in your home with everyone else gone. Use this time to process the week, reconnect with yourself, and restore your reserves. People who maintain calm long-term almost universally have robust solitude practices. It's not isolation, it's restoration, building the practice. These habits work through accumulation. One morning routine won't transform your life. But 100 morning routines will reshape your nervous system's baseline. One moment of mindfulness won't create lasting calm, but thousands of micro-moments will rewire your default state. Start small. Choose 1 or 2 practices from this chapter. Do them consistently for 2 weeks before adding more. Let them become automatic before expanding. The goal is not perfection. You'll miss days. You'll forget practices. You'll fall back into old patterns. This is normal. What matters is returning to the practice again and again. Over time, these habits become invisible infrastructure. The foundation that allows you to walk into any room, face any challenge, and remain fundamentally yourself. Conclusion. Becoming a calm, centered, grounded person, you've reached the end of this book. But you're standing at the beginning of something far more important. The ongoing practice of becoming someone who carries calm with them wherever they go. Let's be clear about what you've learned. This isn't a collection of tricks to fake confidence or manipulate how others perceive you. What you've gained is a comprehensive system for genuine nervous system regulation, emotional intelligence, and authentic presence. These aren't performance techniques, they're transformation practices. The person you're becoming, when you consistently apply what you've learned here, you become a fundamentally different presence in the world. You walk into rooms without the internal noise that used to dominate your experience. Your nervous system no longer screams warnings about social threat. You're not performing calm, you're embodying it. People feel it immediately, though they can't always articulate what's different about you. They feel safer in your presence. They open up more readily. They trust you more quickly. Not because you've learned to manipulate social dynamics, but because you've become genuinely regulated. And regulation is contagious. You handle pressure without falling apart. When challenges arise, and they will, you don't avoid them or collapse under them. You meet them from your center. Sometimes you handle them brilliantly. Sometimes you stumble, but you remain fundamentally yourself throughout. You stop abandoning yourself in moments of stress. This might be the most valuable shift of all. For years, you've probably reflexively abandoned your own needs, boundaries, and truth when situations became uncomfortable. You've twisted yourself into shapes you thought others wanted. You've silenced your authentic voice to avoid conflict or rejection. That pattern ends when you develop genuine calm. You stay connected to yourself even when staying connected feels risky. You speak your truth even when your voice shakes. You maintain your boundaries even when others push against them. Not because you've become rigid or defensive, but because you're grounded enough to stay rooted in who you actually are. The long-term benefits, the benefits of carrying calm into every room, extend far beyond social comfort. Your health improves. Chronic stress is linked to virtually every major health condition. When you learn to regulate your nervous system, you're not just improving your social life. You're potentially adding years to your life and life to your years. Your relationships deepen. When you're not constantly managing anxiety, you can actually be present with people. You listen better. You connect more authentically. You build relationships based on genuine interaction rather than performance. Your career advances. Calm people get promoted. They're trusted with responsibility. They're seen as leaders even when they're not seeking leadership roles. Organizations desperately need people who can stay steady under pressure, and there aren't enough of them. Your decision-making sharpens. When your prefrontal cortex isn't constantly hijacked by your amygdala, you make better choices. You see situations more clearly. You consider options more thoroughly. You act from wisdom rather than reaction. Your capacity for life expands. This might be the most profound benefit. When you're no longer ruled by social anxiety, your world grows. You say yes to opportunities you would have avoided. You have conversations you would have fled from. You take risks you would have considered impossible. Your life becomes larger, richer, and more aligned with who you actually want to be. Final guidance for living with inner steadiness as you move forward. Remember these core principles. Calm is a practice, not a destination. You'll have days where everything flows, and days where you struggle. This doesn't mean you've failed or lost your progress. It means you're human. What matters is that you have tools now, and you know how to return to center when you drift. Progress isn't linear. You'll have breakthroughs and backslides, periods of rapid growth and plateaus. This is how all real development works. Trust the process even when progress feels invisible. Start where you are. Don't wait until you feel ready. Don't wait until you've perfected every technique. Start practicing with whatever situation is in front of you today. Every interaction is an opportunity to apply what you've learned. Be patient with yourself. You're rewiring patterns that have been decades in the making. Your nervous system learned its current responses through thousands of repetitions. It will learn new responses the same way, through consistent practice over time. Give yourself the grace to be a student of this work, not a master who's supposed to have already arrived. Return to the fundamentals. When you feel overwhelmed by everything you've learned, come back to the basics. Breathe. Ground your body. Check your emotional temperature. Set an intention. These core practices will carry you through any situation. Find your people. Surround yourself with others who value presence over performance, authenticity over image, growth over perfection. The people in your life either support your development or make it harder. Choose accordingly. Your next steps: close this book and take 3 deep breaths. Feel your feet on the ground. Notice your emotional temperature right now. Set an intention for how you want to show up in your next interaction. Then go practice, not perfectly, not flawlessly, just genuinely. Walk into the next room you enter with awareness of what you're bringing. Notice when you start to lose your center and gently guide yourself back. Celebrate small wins. Learn from difficult moments. Keep practicing. Over time, weeks, months, years, this practice will transform from something you do into something you are. You'll become the person who others describe as just naturally calm, not knowing the intentional work you've done to develop that quality. But you'll know. You'll know that your calm wasn't given to you, You built it, breath by breath, choice by choice, moment by moment, and that makes it unshakable. You are ready. The rooms are waiting. Walk into them grounded, centered, and fully yourself. The world needs your calm presence now more than ever. Go be that presence.